able to be with us here this morning. If you're from South Carolina, please stand if you're able.
This just started, so here we are. Good morning, everyone.
God bless you all, and thank you for traveling here. And I want to give a warm welcome to those folks. This year marks my 5th year on the committee. Veterans have always been a part of my life.
I'm going to mute this lady's introduction or whatever. I usually go to a Korean French bakery for a chocolate croissant, twisted donut, and a mocha. Today I got to set up for Starbucks. So
I'm always thinking of them, and like my dad, the generations of men and women who've served, my siblings. In fact, I just had one come back from a deployment overseas in the Middle East. For me, it's always about taking care of our veteran community when they come home. I know the sacrifices of each of you have made, especially our disabled community. Each of you has fought to protect the freedoms we hold dear. I, along with my House Republican colleagues, are leading the charge to first help make life more affordable for severely disabled veterans and survivors through the Sherry Briley and Eric Edmondson Veterans Benefits Expansion Act that we reported out of the committee 2 weeks ago. The bill would raise the monthly benefits rate for the most severely service-connected disabled veterans that require around-the-clock care by offering an additional $10,000 annually. It would also boost the monthly support payment that veteran survivors receive by an additional 1.5% annually over the next 2 years. These increases haven't been made in decades. I need your support to help ensure they are not caught up in an election year political games and that they are finally enacted. Second, ensure veterans get quality health care at the VA or within the community. That's why we're fighting for the Veterans Access Act, which is common sense legislation to build and solidify the gains made in the Choice and Mission Acts. The bill would give veterans even more options in how they access their health care outside of the VA, especially veterans living in rural and remote areas. Third, reauthorize VA to make sure the VA's programs work for today's and tomorrow's veterans, something that has not been done in decades. The importance of the Transition Assistance Program, or TAP, is an area that remains a key priority for me and many of us, all of us on the VA committee. Ensuring that service members are set up for their next mission in life is not something I take lightly. Thank you to the DAV for highlighting the importance of new veterans understanding the benefits they have earned and that they deserve. We are also committed to ensuring opportunities for veterans to explore non-traditional education, whether that be through apprenticeships, on-the-job training, during TAP, or the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program. We must continue to focus our efforts to ensure veterans are able to find and maintain meaningful employment. The DAV plays an important role in making sure we advance common sense proposals and conduct oversight to meet the needs of all veterans, no matter their zip code and no matter where they work. Veterans should have the choice to use the benefits VA offers in exchange for their service to meet their own needs. You know where we need to push the agency forward and not stick to the status quo. I can promise you one thing, my House Republican colleagues and I will never stop fighting for you and the voices you represent, the hundreds of thousands of veterans outside the DC Beltway who just want their health care on time, their benefits without a headache, and to live the American dream.
Morning, how's it going?
We take this mission seriously, and I know my House and Senate Republican colleagues, as well as VA Secretary Doug Collins and President Trump, do too. We made progress with the most recent NDAA, and I proudly supported the following major provisions: enhancing the financial planning section of TAP to cover topics such as debt management, taxes, and investing; improving the warm handover process between VA, DOW, and DOL; allowing service members to attend TAP multiple times and encourage folks to bring their spouses along too. These things make a real difference for transitioning service members, and they must have all the tools needed to prepare for their next phase of life with their family. We will continue to fight to deliver historic economic relief for all veterans, including severely disabled veterans like Eric Edmondson and survivors like Sherry Briley. We will continue to fight to modernize the VA and its programs forward through reauthorization. We will continue to ensure veterans, no matter where they live, get the health care they deserve at the VA or in their community. I look forward to completing your mission alongside each and every one of you, and thank you again for being here today. And with that, I will recognize the Ranking Member Takano for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. And I'm glad to see, good morning. I'm glad to see so many of you here ensuring that your voices are heard today. Now, as tradition, I'd like to shout out to those who've traveled from the great state of California. Where are you, California? All right. That can't be, there, California, yes. Welcome, welcome to our nation's capital. Welcome to everybody to our nation's capital. I would especially like to welcome DAV National Commander Coleman Nee and DAV Auxiliary Commander, National Commander Melissa Pierce, as well as the representatives from all of the organizations on our second panel of witnesses. Now, it was great to see you all, and I'm looking forward to an enlightening conversation. And since you were here last, we have all have experienced uncertainty and at times flat-out chaos. Just last week, Secretary Collins announced an interim final rule that would limit VA's obligations to veterans whose service-connected conditions are improved by medications. The response from the veteran community has been loud and near universal, and I agree with you. This rule cannot stand. Medication may be...
They ought to all honor Jones v. Shinseki. Go all the way back.
Medication may be able to minimize the effects of injury or illness. It does not erase them. I know that the Secretary has stated that he won't enforce the rule. Frankly, that is not enough. Mr. Secretary, if you are listening, I call on you to rescind this rule immediately. The committee intends to submit a comment in the Federal Register voicing our disapproval, and I highly recommend that each of you do the same. The link to do so can be found in the banner on top of our website at democrats-veterans.house.gov. This year, in addition to the Secretary's harmful interim final rule, we are facing a massive reorganization of the Veterans Health Administration. Neither of these major actions were planned with input from Congress, or as far as I can tell, from the veteran community either. VA needs improvement, but this proposal appears to be more of an effort to align VA with what is happening in for-profit healthcare. VA should not emulate that model. I also want to address the hurdles that our veterans face in linking their toxic exposures to their service. We have had several discussions regarding overlooked veteran populations that need care. VA has the authority to create new presumptive conditions and deliver that care, and yet they don't use that authority nearly enough. Instead, we seem to have a VA leadership that wants to do more with less, as we have recently heard the Secretary say. You know what? Doing more with less has never worked for veterans. We can't expand benefits to more veterans without having staff at VA to do so. We need doctors and nurses and researchers. We need claims examiners in VA, social workers, janitorial staff, and police officers in VHA to ensure VA is meeting its mission. Each of you has served, and today you continue to serve your fellow veterans and their survivors. Now, from the moment you raised your hand and put on that uniform, you set yourself apart. That commitment came with a promise that you and your family would be taken care of afterwards. You fulfilled your duty. I consider it my duty and the duty of every American to honor that commitment. Over the past year, we have seen attacks on veterans and their earned benefits in an attempt to paint you as a group of scammers or that you're receiving overly generous benefits. Let me be clear, these are not handouts, these are earned benefits. Benefits that were earned by long days, long nights, months away, missed birthdays, missed anniversaries, through blood, sweat, and tears, through great sacrifice, and for some, the ultimate sacrifice. And for those left behind, the survivor community, we owe you a great debt as well. And that is why I support the Caring for Survivors Act and the Love Lives On Act. These bills provide meaningful change for an underserved and deserving community. I know everyone is waiting to see progress on the Major Richard Starr Act. I have heard you loud and clear. We need to pass that act.
It won't even go to a
I
vote.
strongly urge support for the Major Richard Starr Act, and delay on action is unacceptable. It's time to get it done.
Man, where's
Now,
Jesus?
being very transparent with you, none of these bills are cheap. And under the current rules of the House, it's been a struggle to find ways to pay for them.
We're broke.
But that's just a lame excuse. If we can find an extra $500 billion for the Pentagon that they don't want or need, we can find an extra $50 billion for our nation's veterans, their dependents, and survivors. Congress must do the right thing, and we should do so without asking veterans to shoulder the costs. Veterans earned their benefits already. They should not be asked to pay for them again when they leave service. We know veterans are willing to make sure their comrades are taken care of, and I respect that immensely. But the point is, they shouldn't have to. Congress can and should do better. The American public has been told that it is willing to stand up. The American public has told us that it is willing to stand up for those who have served and ensure they get the benefits they've earned. And that includes taking a stand against claim sharks. We must pass Representative Pappas's GUARD Act today.
So I totally agree with that, coming from someone who owns.
Anytime benefits are increased,
Pass the GUARD Act, please. The whole reason we made our company was to give an option to those who don't want to pay 5 times, 6 times the increase.
are increased,
Pass
the
it,
sharks come
please.
circling.
Please.
Claim sharks prey on veterans and siphon off hundreds of millions of dollars a year of veterans' hard-earned benefits, and this is wrong. Now, even in the past week, the sharks have come circling again, pushing out ads in an attempt to profit off of the chaos sown by VA's rule to roll back disability ratings. The purpose of these ads is to scare veterans into signing up for their service to quote-unquote protect their ratings. I've even seen targeted, I've even been targeted by these ads. They are slick and they are made to look like they're coming from the VA. There must be consequences for this behavior. But the lobbying efforts of these companies is immense, and it has stalled congressional action. Fortunately, states have stepped into the breach, and I would like to shout out to my home state of California for stepping up on this issue and passing legislation that takes on these claim sharks. Thank you, California. And I'm proud to see California's leading the way, but Congress is still not off the hook. We must act. So, Madam Chair, thank you for holding this important hearing today, and I look forward to frank and a fruitful discussion today.
And I will now.
You know, the only thing I worry, almost everything he said, I agree with. The thing I worry about, what I'm seeing, is it seems like a lot of grandstanding and clip farming from just so far. And, I want this hearing to bear fruit. Something has to come out of it. We can't just say good things. Something actually has to happen. You ever have a meeting where people talk a lot, but nothing gets done? That's what I don't want this to be.
Thank you, Mr. Toncano. Now recognize Chairman Moran.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairwoman Mace. It's good to be here with my ranking member, Senator Blumenthal, with Congressman Toncano and you for our first joint hearing this year. I want to welcome our witnesses and glad that you're here. This is an important component of what we do to make certain that we are paying attention to those who served. And I'm appreciative of the Disabled American Veterans and the other veteran service organizations for their presence here today. And I extend a special welcome to the Kansans who are in the audience today. And I look forward to spending more time with you this afternoon. I'm grateful for the work the VSOs, like the ones we will hear from this morning, do every day across the country and here in our nation's capital to support their fellow veterans and their families and advocate for stronger and better Department of Veterans Affairs. Our committees are working every day with those same goals in mind. We may talk often about the challenges veterans face after service, but I'm always reminded at these hearings that veterans are not defined by their challenges. Far from it. Every day in every state and every district, veterans bring a wealth of skills, leadership, experience, and values from their military into their communities. It is our responsibility to make certain that federal programs and policies at the VA and in every other department and agency help veterans translate those strengths into long-term stability, health, and opportunity. This responsibility is why I, along with Ranking Member Blumenthal, have introduced the National Veterans Strategy Act to coordinate the efforts of federal, state, and local governments, along with not-for-profits, for-profit organizations, all in the best interest of our nation's veterans. I'm grateful for widespread support for that bill among the VSO community, and I'm eager to discuss it with our witnesses today. I'm grateful to the VSO leaders today for their tireless work to make certain that the Congress and the VA remain focused on doing what is in the best interest of our veterans and military communities. I look forward to hearing how your legislative priorities advance veteran success, where Congress can do more to make certain that the VA's policies translate into real improvements in the veterans' well-being. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to today's hearing.
And I now recognize Ranking Member Blumenthal.
Thank you, Chair Mace, and thank you, Senator Moran, our chair.
I'll tell you this, Blumenthal and Takano in the same hearing, I wish Doug Collins was in the chair. Oh my goodness, that would just be, it would be like watching WWE.
Chairman in the Senate. I'm honored to be with all of you today, and particularly want to welcome anyone who has managed to make it here from Connecticut, out of the snow. If you're here, Connecticut, thank you. And thank all of the rest of you. Never doubt that you are making a difference. Our VSOs are the lifeblood of our veterans' healthcare and other benefits and compensation to the men and women who are our national heroes. You are the ones who stand in watch over the VA and over us. And the latest example was your reaction to the cuts that were threatened, cruel, stupid cuts in VA benefits. And you and your voices turned it around. Thank you to the Veterans Service Organization for correcting what would have been a disastrous slash in benefits from countless veterans who rely on medications to manage their service-connected conditions. Thank you, all of you. But there's still work to be done. Still work to be done on that issue, among others. Representative Takano and I this morning sent a letter to Secretary Collins demanding the immediate rescission of the Department of Veterans Affairs interim final rule. It's entitled Evaluative Rating Impact of Medication, a benign sounding rule that in fact will impact cruelly and dangerously our veterans. I call on Secretary Collins to rescind this rule this morning while you are testifying here.
I'm calling the VA to go back and honor
in this letter.
Honor the court's decisions. Don't just
I am
rescind it.
hoping that this effort will be bipartisan, as so much of our work is and should be, but it has to result in action. I read just this morning an excellent article written by Barry Jesenowski.
Barry Law.
Thank you for this excellent article in Military. I ask that it be put in the record, Madam Chair.
Barry Law, or am I getting that wrong?
And its headline is, Veterans Aren't Campaign Props. Congress must start acting like it. I couldn't have said it better. And to quote the article, recent Congresses rank among the least productive in modern history paralyzed by
I'll link
dysfunction,
this below for you if
partisan
you want to see it.
infighting, and an apparent inability to do the basic job voters sent them to Washington to do. We should overcome, yeah, that deserves your applause for sure. Thank you, Barry. We need to overcome this kind of dysfunction, not only for our veterans, but for our whole country. And I hope that this hearing will mark a critical step in that effort. And the best example would be passing the Major Richard Starr Act. Most of you know, I have championed this bill for years.
National
I
ads.
went most recently
CEO
to the
of
floor
VA
of the United
VSO.
States Senate and asked for unanimous consent. It was blocked by one of my colleagues. I ask all of you, make your views known about the Richard Starr Act.
So what he said is true. It was blocked by a Republican because we have no money to fund it. That's the issue.
Joins in supporting a measure that
We're broke.
is
It's-
about basic fairness.
If you're wondering, we are too broke for veteran bills. I'm not making that up. That is a real thing.
So that our combat veterans are not deprived of benefits they have earned. These are not beneficence. They're not charity. They're not philanthropy. You've earned them. It's not double dipping. It is deserved. The Richard Starr Act should pass during this session of the United States Congress. And I will go to the floor and again ask unanimous consent that it be approved. Let me say finally, I am deeply grateful to all of you for the support that you've provided to a range of other measures. I've read your testimony, the GUARD Act, the kinds of basic architecture that we need to sustain. We've seen a systematic degradation of VA healthcare and the first ever net reduction in VA staff, a concerted effort that has forced thousands of physicians, schedulers, registered nurses, and others to leave federal service. Veterans have seen increased mental health care wait times, politically motivated policies that threaten at-risk veterans, and decreased quality of veterans' decisions. These administrative actions also demand scrutiny and reversal. Thank you for all you do for America and for the veterans of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have with us today National Commander Coleman Nee, is a DAV Life member of Chapter 3 in Boston, Massachusetts, and lives in Cape Cod with his family. He's a Marine veteran of the Persian Gulf War and a graduate of American University right here in Washington. The son of a World War II veteran, Commander Nee walked into a recruiter's office at the age of 18 and joined the Marine Corps Reserve. It was an opportunity to serve something bigger than himself.
Reserves don't
while
count.
pursuing higher education.
That's a joke.
But
Don't
instead
get
of
mad at
attending
me.
his college graduation, Commander Nee was called to active duty and boarded a plane to Saudi Arabia in response to Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. There as a motor transport operator, he supported infantry units
No,
with
that's not
supply
what
runs
the
for
MRSA
6
is.
months. Like so many of our veterans, Commander Nee's service did
I'll
not
type it out.
end when he took off the uniform. From 2011 to 2015, he served as the Secretary of the Massachusetts Department of Veterans Services. Under his leadership, the department created a number of new initiatives to increase access to services for all veterans, including the more than 47,000 returning Massachusetts veterans from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. As Secretary, Commander Nee also oversaw the creation of a First in the Nation initiative to support veterans and their families coping with the stresses of returning from war, and oversaw management of the Massachusetts Women Veterans Network, one of the most successful women's veterans advocacy organizations in the nation. Commander Nee went on to spend nearly 9 years as CEO for a company dedicated to empowering people with disabilities to succeed in employment and leadership positions. Before being elected to the organization's highest post, Commander Nee served on DAV's Board of Directors, the National Interim Legislative Committee, and the National Executive Committee. Through his time in the Marine Corps and his decades of mission-driven work, Commander Nee has shown who he is, a servant leader who appreciates and honors service. It is now with great pride and appreciation and admiration that the committee now recognizes DAV National Commander Coleman Nee to deliver some opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for that very, very kind introduction. And I appreciate you stepping in for my good friend, Representative Stephen Lynch, who could not be here. I believe Representative Lynch is still digging out a parking spot up in Boston. So thank you for stepping in. Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Moran, Ranking Members Blumenthal, Anticano, and members of the Committees on Veterans Affairs, thank you for the opportunity to present the 2026 legislative priorities of DAV, Disabled American Veterans, and our partners in the auxiliary, of which I am also a proud member. Together, our over 1 million members represent more than 6 million wounded, ill, and injured veterans, all of whom returned from wartime service forever changed. Now, my written testimony details
This guy made the
DAV's
post
key
on
legislative
4.10 that I
goals
highly disagreed with, by
for
the
this
way.
119th Congress, and it summarizes our many programs and accomplishments that we've made over the last year. So I'll use my limited time here today to highlight some of our critical policy goals. But before I do that, please let me introduce my DAV colleagues joining me here today. Our National Adjutant and CEO, Barry Jizanowski, our National Headquarters Executive Director, Cody Van Boxel, our Washington Headquarters Executive Director, Jim Marzalik, our National Service Director, Scott Hope, National Legislative Director, John Retzer, our National Voluntary Services Director, John Kleindienst, our National Caregiver Support Program Director, Ron Minter, our National Employment Director, Jeremy Yost, and my good friend and my partner and my commander, our Auxiliary National Commander, Melissa Pierce. I'd also like to recognize the many DAV members and leaders who joined me here today. Obviously, not every one of our members could make the trip to Washington, but their contributions have been critical to DAV's success as the nation's premier veteran service organization. I also wish to express my gratitude to our National Executive Committee, members of our Interim Legislative Committee, as well as my Chief of Staff, Mike Valier, for all of their support. And finally, I want to thank my beautiful family, my wife Karen, my son Jack, and my daughter Kate, who have remained steadfast partners and supporters, not only of me, but veterans everywhere. Members of the committee, I sit before you as a service-disabled veteran of the Gulf War. I know from my own time in uniform, as well as from the experiences of my comrades in arms, that there is a price paid by all those who serve. Now, as a former Massachusetts Secretary of Veteran Services, I oversaw more than $100 million in state funding for veterans and dependents. This included financial aid and programming. Suffice it to say, I understand the difficulties you all face when it comes to making decisions that affect the lives of your fellow countrymen. It's not easy.
I'm going to say something
There's
here.
no shortage of critics. So let me take this opportunity up front to simply say thank
A lot of
you.
VSOs, like the one watching right now, he just said a lot of words without
Long
saying
before gaining
anything.
that insight, I watched in my
Indicator
reserves
of
who
a
made it
much
home from
larger
Vietnam,
issue.
built one of the nation's
VSOs are
first
great, don't get me wrong.
memorials to the 25 sons of South Boston who made the ultimate sacrifice.
But holy baloney, we're saying a lot of stuff without
Witnessing my
saying
friends
anything.
and neighbors from Southie honor our fallen heroes had a profound impact on me. It illustrated the importance of banding together to accomplish a task bigger than oneself. And like many of those seated behind me, I found military service reinforced that idea. As a Marine motor transport operator, I spent a lot of time getting tossed around the insanely uncomfortable cabs of military vehicles. It wasn't the kind of thing that gets glamorized in Hollywood, but getting Marines and supplies where they needed was enough for me to know that I did my part. But as we all know, military service comes with trials and tribulations that can last far beyond our time in uniform. Fortunately, the Department of Veterans Affairs is there to assist us throughout our lives. When I pursued my higher education, it was GI Bill that paid my tuition. When the VA Home Loan Guarantee Program helped Karen and I buy the house that we live in today. When my service-connected disabilities contributed to me stepping down as CEO from an organization that I had ran for nearly 9 years, it was VA disability compensation that helped me keep our finances in order. When I needed the medical care for those same disabilities, it was VA hospitals and vet centers that provided the care I needed and still need today. And when I am called to stand my final post, the VA's National Cemetery Administration relieves the burden for my family and ensure that I am laid to rest with honor and dignity. None of this is unique to me. Countless veterans can share that same story. Yet with everything happening in our country today, I can't help but wonder if VA will be there for future generations as it was for me and for all of our nation.
That's a fear-mongering statement. In case you're curious as to what fear-mongering is, it's that. It's
The
giving
VA
it
stands
emotionally
at a
charged
defining
story
crossroads.
and then saying, I don't think the VA will
One
be
that will
there in the
shape not
future."
only the institution itself, but our nation's enduring commitment to those who have worn its uniform.
It seems like the
On one
DAV
path
is playing a
lies
partisan
the
line
dismantling,
here, which should not.
fragmentation,
Oh my God.
and gradual erosion
I cannot
of a
believe.
system that was built to serve veterans. On the other lies a principled effort to modernize, strengthen, and safeguard the VA for future generations who will answer the call to serve. This is not merely a political or bureaucratic debate. It is a moral issue. It is a strategic issue. It is even a national security issue.
No one is talking about getting rid of the VA.
As an organization founded before our
benefits,
nation had a
or
federal
healthcare.
agency charged with honoring veteran sacrifices, we, DAV, know that the VA was not created by accident or convenience. It was built out of necessity and obligation. After each major conflict in American history, our nation confronted the same question: how will we keep our promise to those who bore the cost of war? The VA emerged as the answer. Its mission is singular in American governance: to serve a population not defined by age, income, or geography, but by service and sacrifice. Yet today, VA faces intense pressure. Critics point to long wait times, uneven quality of care, outdated infrastructure, and administrative inefficiencies. These criticisms are not unfounded. The VA, like many large institutions, has struggled to adapt to changing demands, particularly the complex needs of post 9/11 veterans. But acknowledging flaws is not the same as abandoning the mission. Calls to dismantle or significantly privatize VA are often framed as pragmatic solutions, offering veterans choice by shifting care to the private sector. On the surface, this may sound reasonable. In practice, it risks hollowing out the only healthcare system in this country that is purpose-built for veterans. Private healthcare systems are not designed around military service. They don't specialize in combat trauma or polytrauma rehabilitation. They don't take into account the lifelong consequences of military toxic exposures, and they are not accountable to veterans in the same way that a public institution is accountable to the people that it serves.
Again, it seems like a partisan.
Dismantling, once
Versus
begun, is
anything
rarely
else.
reversible. As resources, talent, and expertise are siphoned away, the VA's ability to function deteriorates. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy in which weakened performance is used to justify further destruction of the department. Veterans are left navigating a fragmented landscape of providers, insurers, and bureaucracies, often at the moments when they are least equipped to do so. Preservation, on the other hand, does not mean defending the status quo. Preserving the VA means reforming it with seriousness and resolve. It means modernizing facilities, investing in digital health infrastructure, streamlining our claims processing, and holding leadership accountable for performance. It means expanding our mental health capacity, strengthening rural access, and ensuring that care keeps pace with evolving medical science. Most importantly, preservation means recognizing that VA is not simply a healthcare provider. It is a covenant with those who have earned its services. If our nation is serious about honoring the promise made to those who served, then our priorities must be clear. Here are some of DAV's critical policy goals for this year. First, we must make the claims and appeals process work for veterans, not against them. Timely, accurate decisions are not a courtesy. They are a moral obligation.
Why is YouTube blocking my?
We must also strengthen presumptive policies so that veterans exposed to toxic substances are not forced to prove what history and science already know. No veteran should have to be forced to wait decades for the health care and benefits that they have already earned.
I don't know about that. Like, the presumption for PACT Act is super easy. If he's talking about Terra and exposure, that's not presumption. I could have totally heard that wrong though, but.
Equally urgent is closing the gaps in mental health care and suicide prevention. Every veteran in crisis deserves immediate, comprehensive support because no one who served this nation should ever feel forgotten or alone. Our survivors also deserve better. Modernizing and strengthening their benefits ensures financial security after a veteran is gone. Their sacrifices have earned the gratitude of a grateful nation, and we must never neglect them. As veterans age, long-term care must keep pace with their needs. That means expanding assisted living options and strengthening support for caregivers, many of whom bear enormous responsibilities with limited resources. These unsung heroes deserve not just our thanks, but meaningful support.
Beautiful
that
comment
makes a
here.
difference in their lives.
Beautiful comment here.
We must also protect veterans programs from arbitrary budget caps and pay-go offsets that quietly erode funding year after year. Our nation should never balance its budget on the backs of those who have stood to defend it. They already paid.
I think that's talking about the Shirley Briley.
And finally, just last week, a new regulation was published by the VA. It would have reduced compensation for some disabled veterans simply because they take medication for their service-connected disabilities.
No, it wouldn't have.
We're pleased Secretary Collins listened to veterans and announced that the VA would not be implementing the rule. No veteran should be penalized for taking the medication they need to survive.
It's always been like that, brother. You got it wrong.
Every generation of veterans inherits a system built by those who came before. The VA that treated World War II veterans like my dad enabled the care of Korea and Vietnam veterans. The reforms driven by Gulf War veterans like myself laid the groundwork for post 9/11 care. What we decide now will determine whether future veterans inherit a robust, integrated institution or a patchwork of programs that treats their needs as transactional rather than holistic. The choice before us is not between reform or stagnation. It is between responsibility or retreat. The VA stands at a crossroads. History will judge which path we choose. What lies beyond is not merely an institutional outcome, but a statement of our national character. Let us choose preservation. Let us choose reform. And above all, let us choose to keep the promise to those who have always kept faith with us. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my testimony. May God continue to bless DAV, the men and women who serve our great nation, and the United States of America. Thank you very much.
I wish people clapped like that every time I made a video.
Since we expect so few to be here,
I'm not trying to be overcritical or anything. I really don't like doing this. But it goes back to what I said. It seems like grandstanding, that we're saying a lot of words, but nothing gets done. This was clearly a partisan statement, very, very clear, which is weird because then he said the VA needs to be reformed, and that's what's happening right now. And rural access to healthcare is important, which is what community care would help specifically. It's just weird, man. Anyways, here we go.
Well, we could do a second round potentially. Let's just do the first round, but let's just see how long we take. All right, beautifully stated with a beautiful Boston accent. So thank you. So I'm going to recognize myself. We'll all have approximately 3 minutes each on
It's
this
like,
initial round. And I'm going to recognize myself for questions.
It's like everyone.
Commander
thinks it's
Nee, how
unicorns and
important is
rainbows,
community
you know?
care for veterans, home health care in rural and remote areas?
I believe integrated community care with VA facilities is critical for a lot of our rural veterans. Many of these areas that we go to don't have ready access to VA services right away. It's why I'm very proud of our DAV transportation network. We're getting many of these veterans to their medical appointments, but integrated coordinated care with our VA services is something that DAV has for a long time supported. But it has to be done in the right manner. It has to be integrated with their VA healthcare records so that we're collecting that data nation.
Remember how he just crapped on community care in his statement? But now he's saying it's needed? Sure, the integrated records from community care to VA, obviously that can improve, right?
Nationwide.
And then in addition to transportation means, are there other things that we can be doing to improve community care in rural areas?
Yeah, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I want to answer your question, Madam Chairwoman, but I also have some great experts up here as well. So I may refer to them occasionally just to give some follow-up background. And I know John Retzer, our National Legislative Director, might have some comments.
Great question, Chairwoman. I appreciate that. And with community care, one of the things that we really want to see is first and foremost, the standards that VA has in training is also extended and required by our VA community providers. And why is that? When you look at the toxic exposure, traumatic brain injury, women, veterans, special needs, those all need levels of competency that meet the standards of the very diverse needs of our population. So that's one of them. The second part is we need a robust interoperable system, the electronic health record modernization. As we watch VA go through 26 and 27 as they deploy to the 13 and 26 sites, we really need to make sure that they have taken and addressed all the incidents that you have all identified as concerning and safety issues, and make sure that they roll it out very seamlessly and ensure that change management within the staff is also adopted, and that it is working between DoD, VA, and community care seamlessly.
Thank you. And Commander Nee, my next question is for you, but you may ask somebody else. In some of your testimony, you've discussed alternative therapies in healthcare. Any thoughts on any technologies that are more valuable than others? What should we be focused on alternative therapies or tools for recovery and healing for our veterans when they come home?
Great question, Madam Chairwoman. Yes, I personally am a huge believer in alternative therapies. Myself have used alternative and naturalistic therapies for my own disabilities. We've done a significant amount of work on that and in fact, we've done a significant amount of research.
Thank you.
I believe, John, would you like to weigh in a little bit on some of the specifics?
We only have a
of what
few
we
seconds left before I have to hand it off.
Great. Actually, what we look at it is alternate options, and we really appreciate, alternate options doing research on psychedelics. We are looking at options in how HBOT can have efficacy in with regards to our post-traumatic stress disorder, and we are continuing to also ensure that our women veterans with regards to menopause research is also there.
All right, thank you. And I now yield to Ranking Member Takano. Thank you.
Mr. Nee, how would you characterize this past year in terms of information flow between the department and the VSO community?
That's what's happening.
Yeah, I think I know Jim Marzlik, our Washington executive director, deals directly every day with the
Figure
VA.
it out,
I'd
homie.
like him
Come
to
on.
weigh in a little bit, but before that, I can say that honestly, over the years, what I've seen is when your vet service organization community has an active working partnership with VA, the system is a lot better and more gets done. Jim, would you like to weigh in on the specifics of this particular conversation?
Yes, thank you, Commander. And thank you, Ranking Member Takano, for the question. I think the Commander said it perfectly as well, that working together is very, very important, right? So if we're able to collaborate more, the better off VA is going to be as well. As you just seen last week, what occurred. I think if we were involved earlier, we could have told them, hey, this is not going to go over well in the veteran community. This is not a good thing for veterans at all. So the collaboration has improved a little bit over the last year. I think Deputy Secretary Paul Lawrence was at our conference. He spoke on Sunday. Before he made formal remarks, I was able to meet with him. He did assure me we will be collaborating more. We have a meeting later this week to discuss a couple things. So that's I'm optimistic. I'm excited about being able to sit down with him and his team and find out how we can work better together.
Okay, well, I'm
Collaborate.
glad you're optimistic about that, and that information flow seems to be improving, but I can tell you that I've seen that getting data from DA has been very difficult. This interim final rule being announced without any input from veterans, much less Congress, I thought was a huge misstep and a mistake. We have several bills that would radically improve benefits for survivors, like Love Lives On and Caring for Survivors. DAV supports these bills, right? Is that correct, Commander Nee?
I believe we do. John?
That is correct, Ranking Member. DAV supports the Major Richard Star, Love Lives On, and we want to ensure that we bring the parity with all our veterans as they are.
Well, great. Thank you. I know as a non-veteran, I would never ask you or your members to bear the cost of your earned benefits. Would you agree that veteran and survivor benefits are earned and therefore should be paid by the general public?
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Ranking Member. Thank you.
Yes.
I asked the same for the Major Richard Star Act. Should veterans shoulder the cost of the Major Richard Star Act?
No.
What he's getting at is the offset. If you watch my video last week, I talked about how the House said the only way they'll fund veteran bills is with the offset, which means other veterans will pay for other benefits or other taxpayer dollars. That's what he's getting at. So I don't like Takano at all, but what he's saying here is solid. Okay.
They should not. We are opposed to any reduction of benefits or services that help our injured or ill veterans in VA care.
Should we allow arbitrary congressional rules to stand in the way of doing what is right for veterans?
No.
The answer is no. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Everyone clap. I feel like we all have
I will
to
now
clap after every
recognize
word.
Ranking Member Blumenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that excellent testimony, Mr. Hay. I have just a few questions. I'm very interested in your emphasis on the need for standards for community care, and at the same time, improving
I think we
the
have.
quality of care in the VA. If the emphasis is
I can do that.
exclusively on expanding community care, doesn't that endanger the quality and availability of care for the VA if all the resources go to community care?
Thank you for that question. I believe if all the resources were going to community care, no, that would not be something we're in favor of. I believe VA works better if there is a coordinated community care network, but in my own experience, having that information and that medical record flow from the community back into your VA record helps tremendously.
And
It
you
just
would
makes it
agree that standards comparable to what the VA has to meet should be applied to community care, correct?
Yes.
And information about what is happening in community care
He didn't get the answer he
should
wanted.
be the same. The data, the basic information that's provided should be the same, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that there ought to be a commitment to repair and upgrade VA's aging infrastructure?
I absolutely would agree with that, Mr. Ranking Member.
And to replace the 30,000, yes, it's 30,000 physicians, nurses, and others essential to VA healthcare should be filled and replaced. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I think Mr. Retzer might have some thoughts on that as well.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Ranking Member, I appreciate the line of questioning, and really what DAV is always supported is a balance amongst community care, but we have to make sure, if you look at our Veterans Independent Budget of fiscal year 2027, we provided a recommendation to decrease community care budget. And the reasons is that we've got infrastructure issues, we have inflation, market values that is really plaguing the Department of Veterans Affairs. We want to make sure that we internally strengthen VA's healthcare system to meet the needs of all of our veterans, to include rural veterans. And so as you look at our report, it'll give you some guidelines. One of the things that we notice with the community care is the cost of emergency and urgent needs and going out into community care. So we did a recommendation in our report citing a plus up with regards to strengthening.
But
VA's
let me
internal
just,
capacity.
because my time is about to expire, I'm going to interrupt with apology. We have encountered tremendous difficulty. And I will say on both sides of the aisle, I don't want to speak for anyone, but the flow of information from the VA
Switch out.
has been highly obscure. And even after the last hearing that we had, when Secretary Collins promised to fully answer all of our questions, to this moment, we've received half or less than he promised to provide. So I hope you will join in this effort to demand full and complete transparency from the Department of Veterans Affairs so that you can be effective advocates for the veterans of America. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Senator.
We got to clap. We have to. It's obligatory.
I will now recognize Representative Luttrell.
Thank you, Madam
Clap.
Chairwoman. And it's good to be in the House with all my brothers and sisters. I miss you terribly, so I'm glad everyone made the trip. You know, for decades, Congress has appropriated millions and millions of dollars to the Department of Veterans Affairs for, they need to help me out. Millions of dollars for suicide prevention inside the VA. Millions of dollars, decades and decades. And every year, the suicide rate increases. We're losing that battle. You hear the number 22 veterans a day, up to 40 veterans a day. Does anyone on the panel know how many spouses of veterans commit suicide? Does anybody know the answer to that question? From what I understand, every 8 days, a spouse takes his or her life. I don't know if that's concrete. I'd like to put that onto the panel to find that answer out for me, but that through my research, that's what I'm hearing. Every 8 days, a spouse of a veteran takes their life. I heard you say that you're supporting alternative means of treatment, psychedelics, neuroplastogens. We're trying to find a name that doesn't scare everyone away. And to date, thousands and thousands of our brothers and sisters go overseas for this treatment, and it's highly effective. And out loud, I'll say there's 3 members of Congress, myself, Mr. Correa, and Mr. Bergman, that are openly engaged with the VA, with DOD, HHS, FDA, on moving research on these medications to save us from that 1-inch pistol range. And to date, it's like pushing a wet noodle up a hill. It is amazing. And some of the responses I've gotten was like, well, how many do you actually think this will save? And my response is, one. If it saves one veteran, we're moving in the right direction. But we're not making enough noise. The three of us can't do this alone. You would think in the House of Representatives, this is where the power lives. But when I look out into the crowd, and if DAV supports this effort, I'm calling for an all-hands muster. You have to be present. Is this direction the way that we want to go? I adamantly believe it is. It's either taking a step somewhere else or continuing down the road of opioids and SSRIs and all the other stuff that we pump into our bodies to make ourselves feel good, and it inevitably leads to one place for those unfortunate ones. Then I don't have a question more than a statement. If we're all in, like we are when we're in combat, and you look to your left and your right and like, hey, I'm here with you and we're going, this is what we have to do. So I'm asking for your help. When you travel around the lower chamber, the upper chamber, you're hanging out at the administration, ask these questions. Why can't, or why haven't we moved research in the VA and the DOD, and why isn't the FDA supporting this? Why is the FDA not supporting this? And God bless each and every one of you and your families for your service. Thank you.
Amen. All right, now recognize Representative Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commander, thanks very much for your testimony, and to all the members that are here in this room, thank you for your service, for making this country so great. Commander, I share your deep concerns that you expressed about VA not being there for future generations, and efforts to dismantle the workforce, to carry out reorganization without significant feedback from the veteran community and stakeholders, and to implement policies that threaten rather than increase or improve benefits, and how that will really undermine the ability of VA to be there and to deliver, and create this self-fulfilling prophecy around privatization that I think we all are in agreement we need to guard against. You asked an essential question, which is, how will we keep our promise to those who have borne the battle? And then conveniently, you gave us all the answers. You gave us a good roadmap in terms of what Congress needs to do to answer that question and to make good on the debt that we owe to all those who have worn the uniform of this country. And I regret that it's taken so long to get things like the Major Richard Starr Act considered and across the finish line. Things like the Love Lives On Act, which is really important to survivors. One issue that I hear, which is a top concern of veterans in New Hampshire, and I believe across the country, it's always brought up to me, is dental coverage. And I know that Representative Brownlee isn't here. She has led on that issue for a number of years. But could you talk about this as a priority in terms of treating the whole veteran and making sure that we have the right providers at VA to be able to expand this and make sure that more vets get access to dental coverage?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Congressman. Dental care is essential. Dental care, proper dental care helps many of our veterans prevent cancer, diabetes, other very serious health issues. It helps in employment rates. I know when I go to many veteran homeless stand downs, one of the major services that's provided with the longest lines is for the dental care, because that helps with them to get employment and helps with their mental health. And I think if you talk to all of our members, they will tell you all of our service-connected disabled veterans in this country deserve comprehensive, holistic health care, and dental care is health care, period.
Thank you for that response. Absolutely. Well, I want to recognize the great veterans from the Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire who are joining us here. And we had a conversation yesterday that touched on a number of issues. Included among those was dependency and indemnity compensation, which we know is a critical benefit to surviving spouses and family members who have supported our service members and veterans. They talked about waits, people waiting months to be able to get access to these benefits. Do you have any recommendations for Congress on what we should be doing to shorten that time frame and to make sure these benefits actually provide the kind of support that survivors and family members deserve?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. Thank you. That's a great question.
Really
I know
hoping he talks
we've
about
worked
the CARD Act.
extensively on this, and I believe
He's like the main
Scott
figure
Hope
behind it.
has some very specific comments on this particular matter.
Thank you, Commander, and thank you for the question. Our dependency indemnity compensation is specifically for surviving spouses. Anything that we can do to bring in additional funds and parallel what other federal agencies have for individuals who pass away of a service-connected disability, we would definitely support. We are willing to link shields to defend what is currently available, and we will raise our swords to assist you or any member of your staff to fight for something in the future.
Thanks for that commitment and for all that you do. I yield back.
Thank you. I now will recognize Representative King Hines.
I was hoping he
Thank
would
you,
talk
Madam
about
Chair.
the GUARD Act.
First of all, let me start off by
Unfortunate.
saying thank you for your service and thank you for making your voices echo in the halls of Congress today. I honor you today with
Clap. Get the claps going.
my
Hold on.
thank you.
Hold on.
I think just listening in on the conversation, what we're all really talking about is reform. And I think that we can all agree that the VA needs reform, right? But the question here is how do we do that reform responsibly so that one, it improves performance, but more importantly, delivers better outcomes for all of you. And I think in these conversations, what I'm looking for is trying to find that right balance. And so I want to ask any member of the panel who could answer this, what metrics should Congress monitor to ensure that we are improving access without hollowing out the VA facilities, right? At what point does expanding community care risk weakening the VA's internal capacity? As a non-veteran myself, these are the conversations that I would like to have so that I can make an informed opinion.
Well, I thank you very much for the question. Obviously, as someone who is reliant on VA healthcare for my own health, I'm interested in that as well. I believe that we've done a significant amount of work on this, and let me ask John to give you a
Yeah,
little bit of a
that
background,
lady's
please.
usually pretty solid.
Thank you. And as we address the healthcare reform and how we balance community care, we have to address the access standards, which you have all done for some time with Choice Act, Mission Act. And now we're at a point where we also have the introduction of the Access Act, which DAV supports. And we believe, as we look at it, not only do we have to look at the Access Act with regards.
So this is, I just figured this out. This is the loop link. That's me. I'm doing that because every 5 seconds these people are clapping. So it's I don't want to mislead you there. I will stop doing the clap.
To how it
So you can hear their
facilitates
clap by
services
themselves.
for the urban metropolitan, but we do have to address very specifically how do we do that differently for our rural and remote veterans, along with our women veterans. When we have over 1 million this year now enrolled in the VA healthcare system, they are the highest users of community care. So we got to figure out how to bring that back into the VA healthcare system. So we do need to look at the model of healthcare and flip it up, maybe upside down to say it's not a hospital model only. We need to look at really strengthening the CBOX. And that CBOC methodology could really strengthen.
I'm going to reclaim my time. I guess, I want, what type of metrics should Congress develop when we are talking about actually addressing those issues? Right.
So, yes, and I think because we have such limited time, we'd love to work with your staff on it. And we have some recommendations within the Veterans Independent Budget that talks about the staffing, infrastructure, and the budget requirements.
All right. Thank you. I'm about to run out of time, but just a quick question. If Congress does nothing differently over the next 5 years, what's the single greatest risk to the long-term viability of the VA system?
John, would you like to?
And real quickly, because I'm out of time.
It's going to be that we need mandatory funding to keep it strong and healthy.
All right. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. And I know that Ranking Member Takano has a few more questions, so I'll allow a second round, 2 minutes. Our side went over by 1 minute, so I'm going to give Ranking Member Takano 3 minutes. But before I do that, I'm going to say something real quick. I love what everyone has said here today, and Congressman Luttrell, I'm with you. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have authored legislation on plant-based therapies. I've had a bill in the House and had that companion bill was in the Senate with Senator Cory Booker and Senator Rand.
You know what I've noticed, okay, and I try not to be hypercritical here, but this whole hearing has been I had this bill, I did this, DAV saying I did this, DAV so great, our representatives are saying I did this, I have this bill, and so it's grandstanding. In my opinion, this is a lot of talk. It's like having a business meeting, right? One of the things I hated about working for the federal government is we would have meetings all the time. And a lot of words would be said, but nothing. People were saying a lot, but they weren't saying anything. And that's, unfortunately, that's what I see here. Okay. I could be totally wrong, but it's just I had this bill, I did this, I did that.
Paul, one of the problems is up here, as Congressman Luttrell said, is that
No one
anything
cares
up here is
about
like pushing a wet noodle up a hill, and I'm going to steal that one.
We
really,
we're
to
curious.
me,
No one
things
cares
fast are
about you.
happening. And the
Okay.
stats on plant-based therapy for veterans who are suffering from PTSD and have suicidal ideation, the stats of success are through the damn roof. It's amazing what it's done to save lives. I mean, the majority of veterans who suffer from PTSD and pay thousands of dollars or are sponsored by someone who can afford thousands of dollars to go down to Costa Rica or wherever for these plant-based therapies, in some cases, it's over 75% of improvement. And why we are denying veterans the ability to do that unless they're in some sort of special program at Johns Hopkins that the vast majority of vets can't get into.
Just to be clear, we are denying is them.
So,
It's Congress.
as
If
Congressman Luttrell
Congress
said,
wants to pass a law, Congress has to pass the law.
and, as a
There's no
daughter of
we.
a Vietnam
There's no
veteran, I
we
did a
in
lot of
it.
my
It's you.
father's Vietnam
Okay?
reunions.
And
They
in
don't
case
have
you're
them anymore.
curious,
Last year was probably the last one. And I have
what's
talked
that
with a man
quote?
who served with my father.
It's
whose
like
daily
something,
life
something. I found the
time
enemy
of
and
trauma.
him is
It
me.
is only by God's
I'm
grace
gonna
that
look
they
that
are
up. Hold on.
still alive. So really appreciate this very candid conversation. And we do need your voices here on the Hill. So thank you all and God bless you. And with that, Ranking Member Takano, you got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Sorry. Commander, have you heard anything from your members about negative impacts to their healthcare due to VA staffing shortages?
Great question.
Raise your hand if
Great
you have-
question, Ranking Member. Yes, I think
Raise your hand if you have problems with staffing shortages at VA direct care. Go ahead, respond. Yes.
Yeah,
And let the record show that nearly all of the audience raised their hands.
Yeah, no, it is a very serious issue, sir. And for those of us who rely solely on VA for our healthcare, timely and convenient appointments, again, are not just a courtesy. There's something that is an obligation.
Have your members raised concern about their care in the community?
Yes, I have heard. I've heard anecdotes around community care, that issues around military service not being understood, insensitive comments, things of that nature.
So the level of training and preparedness of community providers as compared to VA providers is a significant issue, would you say?
It is a very significant issue.
Would your members support training requirements for community providers?
Yes.
And should those requirements be enforced through the community care agreements? We're about to enter into a 10-year agreement.
$1 trillion.
In other words, if VA has a requirement about suicide prevention and medications and opioids, should community care providers be trained in those standards as equally as they are within the VA?
Yes, I mean,
That was a problem a number of years ago.
correct.
And so,
Community providers should be trained should have specific military training so that they recognize the issues that are very specific to our
and my
veterans.
understanding is that previous contracts and including going forward, and a hearing that I had previously on community care, that VA told me that third-party administrators that they're not required to do this. And so when they build the networks for community care providers, they can't really get their providers to do all these trainings to be up to the same standards as VA doctors and providers. Do you think that's a problem?
I do think that's a problem, sir.
And would you change that? Would you ask VA to make sure that third-party administrators build networks that require their providers to take the same training that VA doctors get?
I agree with
I
that.
would.
I think we should do that.
Seems plain.
Could you elaborate on your written testimony regarding the risks to adequately staffing VA's own healthcare system that are presented by legislation that would create grant programs to fund services outside of VA?
Specifics of that, I know John has done a lot of research.
I've
into, so
run
I'm
out of
gonna
time.
ask
I'm going to be
John.
respectful to the chairwoman, but if you could quickly maybe get the written testimony to me.
Yes, we can get back to you on that question for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much. Our first panel is now dismissed, and I want to thank you all for being here. We will take a 3-minute recess to get the second panel installed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
very much.
righty, it's not over. That's the DAV. We got a few more happening. I'm gonna go upstairs and grab a Dr. Pepper. 23 flavors of love. Don't go anywhere. All right. I'm curious if I can. How do you make an ad happen? You know what? Whatever. I'm gonna go get Dr. Pepper. I'll be right back.
Second panel, I mean, your testimony is the long thing, so if you gotta, you need a comfort break, then like that's.
Huh?
Just a few doors down on the left side. Mhm.
It's gonna be short. It's like there's nobody here, like everybody's left.
Oh man. All right. I guess we're just hanging out until they come back. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat, and we can fill in this time with something. My mom got me this. I got ordained last week before last. I've been officially ordained. It's my favorite verse, James 1:2-4. So I'll have to hang that up here sometime. And something about having kids is I always get these. I have access to cool snacks. So pretty dope. I shouldn't have done that right by the mic. Apologize. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. All right. Yeah, I had to. I went to seminary, theology school, had to do a residency within that program, then had to do a residency with my local church, and got through that, and here I am. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I spend most of my days hanging out with high school teenagers. Sometimes it's really cool. Sometimes it's not so much. Oh yeah, no worries. We're not finished. They can come right back. They're in recess. One of the main reasons I try to do this after is so I can just skip it. But when it's live, actually.
Wives.
Oh, here we go.
Station of.
Because I paused it a few times, so. What an idiot.
And welcome to our second panel. I want to thank you all for being here. We have a lot of information of important organizations to hear from on this panel, so I would like us to get right to it. Today, we are joined by Lieutenant General Brian Kelly of Military Officers Association of America, Dr. Lindsay Knight of Blue Star Families, Mr. Tom Burke of Vietnam Veterans of America, Mr. Larry Wright Jr. of National Congress of American Indians, Captain Rita Graham of Service Women's Action Network, Ms. Barbara Burt of Gold Star Wives of America, and Mr. Richard Berkshire of Black Veterans Project. Again, welcome to
I'm
all of
curious
you and to all of
to
the
where
members
the
of the audience
VFW
here
and the
today.
American Legion are. I
And
don't know
Chair
how
Colonel
these
Kelly,
work
you are
or
now
how they get
recognized
in,
for
but
5
you would
minutes for your
assume
opening statement.
the largest
Thank you,
national
Chairwoman
VSOs,
Mace,
like the
and
big
although not here,
three,
thanks to Chairman
DAV,
Boston, Chairman
VFW,
Moran,
American
and to
Legion
our
would be
ranking
here.
members, Takano and Blumenthal, and all the
I'm
distinguished
curious as
members
to
of both
why
committees.
they're not.
On behalf of the Military Officers Association of America, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm honored to be here today along so many members of our community who work tirelessly to support and help those who serve and have served, our veterans and their families who allow our nation to remain free and strong. I want to invite the MOA members and staff who are here today to stand. They represent more than 356,000 members whose voices strengthen our advocacy and who work to preserve and protect the earned benefits of over 22 million Americans who serve, have served, their families and survivors across all ranks and all uniformed services. Thank you. Let me begin by thanking both committees for your leadership in advancing the Veteran Caregiver Reeducation, Reemployment, and Retirement Act, MOA's top veterans healthcare priority this year. This legislation includes meaningful steps to address the financial, professional, and emotional burdens borne by caregivers who enable veterans to live with dignity and independence. As the bill progresses, we respectfully request your continued support to bring it to the floor in both chambers and ensure its passage, as strengthening education, employment, and retirement opportunities for caregivers honors their service and retirement, and helps family members avoid choosing between caring for a veteran and securing their own future, all while reducing long-term reliance on public assistance. You have my written testimony, but today I'm focusing my opening remarks on two priorities that go to the heart of the system integrity and long-term force sustainability: the GUARD VA Benefits Act and the TAP Promotions Act. First, the GUARD VA Benefits Act. Federal law establishes who may charge veterans for assistance with VA disability claims. That law exists to protect veterans, preserve the integrity of the claims process, and ensure accountability for those who operate within it. When criminal penalties for unaccredited agents were removed in 2006, Congress did not authorize a new industry to emerge outside the existing framework. Yet that is exactly what has happened. Unaccredited for-profit companies now openly charge veterans for services that federal law already restricts. They operate beyond VA oversight and without meaningful consequences. Faced with growing claims volumes, the answer cannot be to simply change the law to accommodate those who are breaking it. If the system is under strain, our responsibility, all of our responsibilities, is to fix the system, not to legitimize practices that siphon earned benefits away from veterans. As someone who spent decades in uniform, responsible for people, processes, and accountability, I can say this clearly: weakening standards to compensate for system stress only compounds the problem. It erodes trust, which is our ultimate currency, undermines legitimately accredited representatives, and sends the wrong message to service members who expect the rules to apply evenly.
I'm going to say something here. There's a stark difference in the DAV's opening statement and this guy's opening statement. Who do you think did better, in my opinion? He's crushing it. It's no there's no, the DAV is the best thing since sliced bread. Here's the issues. Let's go. Okay. Man, this guy is awesome.
Our VA Benefits
Thumbs up for me. Not that my opinion matters at all. I'm just some white guy in a basement, but
Act restores accountability without restricting access to lawful accredited assistance. It reaffirms that the solutions to system challenges is better performance and better oversight. MOA urges Congress to advance this legislation and make clear that earned benefits belong to veterans, not to companies exploiting gaps in enforcement. Second, the TAP Promotion Act. MOA believes that service does not exist in silos. It begins the day someone raises their right hand and it continues into burial honors. From a readiness and force management perspective, the transition from service member to civilian is truly a consequential period, not only for the individual, but for the credibility of the all-volunteer force. Yet transition outcomes vary widely. Too many service members leave uniform not understanding their earned benefits, available resources, or where to turn to for trusted help. That lack of continuity increases the risk to the veteran. As both an MSO and a VSO, MOA occupies a unique position in this space. We support service members while they are still in uniform and continue that support throughout their life as a veteran. That continuity matters.
yeah, this dude's got my
The
vote.
TAP
for sure.
Promotion Act strengthens outreach, improves consistency, and ensures service members and their family members receive timely, accurate information before separation, not after problems arise. It reinforces connections to organizations like ours and the others at this table who are there testifying before this committee that remain with veterans long after their service departs. This belief in life cycle responsibility is also why MOA launched the Total Force Plus conference. With Total Force Plus, we bring together leaders from the uniformed services, the Pentagon, the VA, the Congress, industry, and the nonprofit community to collaborate and advance solutions across this life cycle together. There are plenty of venues that focus on the types of the next ships, the next planes, the next tanks, the next weapons. Total Force Plus focuses on the people who make strong national defense possible, because outcomes improve when responsibility is shared rather than passed along, and everybody believes that people truly outrank everything. From first salute to final honors, how we care for those who serve and those who stand beside them directly impacts who will be willing to serve next. That group of people that was behind us before with those hats on are your biggest advocates. How they are treated will tell whether they tell somebody else to serve, and that is important. MOA stands here today ready for you to serve, and I thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you.
Boom.
I would now like to recognize Dr. Knight for 5
Every opening statement from any VSO should always be like that. No one cares about you, right? No one cares about DAV retaining membership. We don't care about that. Just get to the dang point, okay? Speak with facts. That dude was, beautiful.
minutes for your opening
That
statement.
was beautiful.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Moran, Ranking Members Blumenthal and Takano, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Blue Star Family's 2026 priorities. Blue Star Families is the nation's largest military and veteran family supporting organization. Its research-driven approach builds strong communities with a focus on innovative and data-informed solutions. Since 2009, our research has gathered trusted feedback from over 150,000 active duty and veteran-connected families. Our goal is to enable military-connected families to thrive in the communities that they call home. Since our founding, Blue Star Families has delivered more than $336 million in benefits, counts over 440,000 members, and supports more than 1.5 million people annually. 33% of our membership base is comprised of veterans, veterans' spouses, and veterans' family members. Using this data and member insights as
Yeah, what's crazy about the Claim Shark stuff is you guys know I own our own company. We just rebranded from evidence-based VA claims to VetsIQ. I want the GUARD Act to pass. Okay, the only reason why we made that company is to hopefully steer people away from 5 times, 6 times the increase. And I will gladly close up shop. No issues lost whatsoever. Please pass the GUARD Act, please.
our guide, Blue Star Families has 3 primary legislative priorities in 2026. The first one. In 2022, as a result of the Commander John Scott Hannon Veterans Mental Health Care Improvement Act of 2019, Blue Star Families was awarded funding by the VA under the Staff Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox Suicide Prevention Program. Blue Star Families appreciates the extensive work your 2 committees have done to extend this program past the original 3-year pilot legislation, but we call on you both to work together to extend the program for at least another 3 years and then to work toward a long-term authorization for the most successful initiatives. As recipients of the Staff Sergeant Fox grant, Blue Star Families operates a program at Blue Star Support Circles, Upstream Solutions to Crisis. Through this community-based suicide prevention program, we prioritize veterans who are at risk of suicide by ensuring that their friends and family members can recognize and understand signs and intervene before a veteran's struggle becomes a crisis. As a quick aside to Representative Luttrell, because he brought up the question of how many veteran spouses die by suicide a year. I don't have the number on veteran spouses, but I do have the most recent number from a DoD annual report in 2023 on suicide in the military. That report states that 146 family members, 93 of which were active duty spouses, died by suicide. I think it is an open question and one that our research team is certainly interested in pursuing in partnership with the VA to find out what the corollary number is for veteran spouses. But I also wanted to point out this is why community and family-based interventions and programs matter. Service members do not stand on their own. They stand as part of a unit, whether that is a family, a community. They are connected to others. And oftentimes, those individuals are most able to tell when a crisis is going to happen before the emergency is at our feet. That is the entire theory of change behind our program. To date, nearly 200 individuals have completed this 8-week non-clinical program with Blue Star Families. Support Circles was externally validated by the University of Alabama, and participants demonstrated through pre- and post-surveys statistically significant improvements in their capacity to help others experiencing suicidal thoughts and their own self-efficacy to intervene. Our program increased participants' confidence in discussing suicide from 55% to 74%, enhanced knowledge of appropriate language and resources, and significantly imparted skills to mitigate factors for loved ones who might be having thoughts of suicide. Additionally, the share of participants indicating that all firearms were stored and unloaded increased from 30% to 43% as a result of this program. Veteran suicide prevention, however, is not it's not a nice to have. It is a moral imperative. I think everyone in this room would agree with that. And it also saves VA healthcare resources when done right and done upstream and in a preventative fashion. In 2025, using the first 3 years of participant data, we had an external firm conduct an economic analysis of outcomes. That analysis projects that the Blue Star Support Circles generate healthcare and economic cost savings 17 times greater than program costs. That amounts to roughly $13,247 of net cost savings per cohort participant. Our participants show measurable PHQ-9 depression improvements, reducing major depressive disorder-related healthcare costs, and preventing costly emergency visits and psychiatric
Everything
hospital
she's saying
stations.
is over my head. So
The second legislative priority that we have is that we are calling on Congress to enact the Building
Hey, not blocking comments here. I promise YouTube has their own moderation. Sometimes when I comment, YouTube blocks my comments. So it's not me.
Readiness and Integration for Dependents Going to Civilian Environment.
If I put you in timeout, I will announce it, but I haven't done that this stream at all. I haven't touched chat.
Environments Act. This is sponsored by Senator Alex Padilla and Representatives Sanford Bishop and Jen Kiggins. The measure would establish a 3-year pilot project at 4 U.S. military bases where national organizations serving the military and veteran community would coordinate the extension of military transition services to military families. Challenges veterans face around transition are persistent. In our 2025
Thank you. I love you so much.
58% of veteran respondents
Thank you so
describe their
much.
overall transition
Appreciate
from
it.
military to civilian life
My wife
as
appreciates
difficult
it.
or
That I can
very
tell you.
difficult, and 44% found it more difficult than expected. The transition from military to civilian life is not just a personal journey for the service member, it is a profound change experienced by the entire
No
family.
sweat, dude.
However, many support services for spouses cease at the time of separation, which is often when families require them most. Successful military to civilian transitions depend on comprehensive support strategies that recognize the unique needs of veteran family members, not just in their capacity as caregivers, but as individuals navigating a significant transition themselves. A true measure of a successful transition extends beyond the veteran's employment or access to benefits. It is reflected in the family's stability, well-being, and connection to their community as they establish their new life as a veteran family. Finally, Blue Star Families calls on Congress to pass the Major Richard Starr Act. As many of you know, this bill will allow 52,000 combat injured.
It's not a stream if that doesn't happen, right? I will tell you this. I want to give my transition story. I'll probably do a video on that, but it was horrendous. I was actually technically homeless. I was living in the barracks for 2 months after I left the Marine Corps. I was still living in the barracks, which was kind of weird, but
Medically retired veterans to receive their earned retirement pay and disability compensation without offset. The STAR Act has 315 House and 77 Senate co-sponsors. That is 3/4 of Congress, and it could pass today if brought to the floor on each side of the Capitol. Thank you all and distinguished
Thank you.
members of the committee for inviting Blue Star Families to provide our priorities, views, and research. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize Mr. Burke for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Chairman Moran, Chairman Bost, ranking members Blumenthal and Takano. I appear before you today as a Vietnam veteran and the proud president of Vietnam Veterans of America, an organization born not from comfort or consensus, but from necessity. Our motto is simple and it is unyielding. Never again shall one generation of veterans abandon another. That promise was forged by Vietnam veterans who came home to a country that did not know what to do with us. We did not return to parades, gratitude, and too often we had returned to silence. Some questions, even if Vietnam was a real war. We learned quickly that if veterans did not fight for each other, no one else would. So we fought. We fought for ourselves when no one else would. And we won battles many said we could not win. Long before PTSD had a name, Vietnam veterans forced this nation to recognize invisible wounds as real injuries. Long before Agent Orange or toxic exposure were politically safe to acknowledge, we demanded accountability of harms caused in service to this country. There were no playbooks, no large budgets, no convictions, only conviction, perseverance, and the refusal to be ignored. That's how Vietnam Veterans is built. We may not have the largest balance sheets, but our passion is rooted in lived experience and the hard knowledge of what happens when a nation looks away from those they send to war. That is why, although our name reflects one generation.
Two things here. First, the only reason why post 9/11 Gulf War veterans have the benefits we have is because of this dude and others like him. Second, I just want to show you proof that, I guess I can't show you. YouTube blocked my own comment, so now I have to copy it over from mobile and post it onto the desktop. So YouTube's moderation sometimes is really wacky, right? So the GUARD Act, this comment here is what YouTube blocked. Anyways, hats off to this dude and others like him.
Our mission has never been confined to one. We speak today not only for Vietnam veterans, but for all veterans, because we know what abandonment looks like, and we will not allow it to be repeated. Never again shall one generation of veterans abandon another. That history brings me directly to the Vietnam veterans' highest priority, the full accounting of our prisoners of war and those still missing in action. For those who serve, this is not an abstract. These are names not in a database. They are friends we trained with, people we served beside, and we expected them to come home. The promise that no one would be left behind did not end when the battle stopped, and it does not weaken in time. That is why VVA has never wavered on POW M&A accountability for all wars. It is a sacred obligation, not a discretionary program. Reducing budgets for the agencies responsible for recovering our missing service members is unacceptable. It breaks faith with families who have waited decades and with those currently serving who trust their country will not forget them. Accounting for the missing is not about the past. It is about trust. Vietnam Veterans of America also carries the same sense of passion into a cause of our members know all too well. The fight for veterans exposed to toxic exposures. For too many of us, the war did not end when we came home. It followed us. It surfaced years later in our bodies and too often in our families. Vietnam veterans were exposed to Agent Orange long before anyone was willing to admit what it was doing to our bodies. And evidence now demands serious research into toxic exposure may affect spouses and biological descendants. This fight is not limited to one generation. Vietnam veterans have stood with all veterans that have been harmed by toxic exposure, including those suffering from the Gulf War illness, whose symptoms were dismissed for far too long. We push for recognition because we know exactly what happens when denial replaces accountability.
I wish.
This nation must fully accept its responsibility to every veteran harmed in service, and the Vietnam veterans will continue to speak about this. And this brings me to what deeply veterans must never be used as political leverage. No veteran should ever be helped or ignored because it is politically convenient. Care must never depend on party loyalty, polling, or legislative timing. When veterans become bargaining chips, progressive stops, trust erodes, and real people pay the price. Vietnam Veterans of America did not pick sides. We pick outcomes. and we will work with anyone of any party who is serious about delivering results for those who served. Vietnam Veterans of America will continue working across the aisle on a wide range of legislative issues. We look forward to working with both committees and every member willing to engage in good faith. We will offer our expertise directly to any office wherever it is helpful, because results matter more than credit. Before I close, I must ask how a nation that asks so much of its service members can accept so many will die from suicide, sleeping in the streets, or fall apart in transition once the uniform comes off. How do we explain that the danger does not end when the service is over, be that in combat or any area of other service? How can we accept the danger continues in paperwork in silence? These veteran losses are mostly caused by delay, diffusion of responsibility, and the excuse of complexity. And when systems fail to act, veterans pay the price with their lives. These are our people. They stood watch, they carried the burden, and they deserve urgency. They do not deserve explanations about why help must wait. Vietnam Veterans of America will not accept a system that saves resources while it costs lives. Vietnam veterans taught this nation something important. The progress does not come from waiting to be invited. It comes from showing up, from telling the truth, and from refusing to go away. That is who we are, and that is what we continue to be as long as we have breath in our bodies. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. I now recognize.
Solid. I want to bring something up. Remember how I told you it seemed like people were clip farming? These are just posted 11 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. And we're watching this live, by the way. So.
Is Mr. Wright for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Lots of opening statement.
Larry Wright Jr. Good morning, distinguished members of the committee. I address you in my tribal language, my Ponca language, out of respect and to raise awareness for our native code talkers who were instrumental in helping our country during World Wars I and II. My name is Larry Wright Jr. I'm the Executive Director for the National Congress of American Indians. Previously, I served as tribal chairman for the Ponca Tribe in Nebraska for 11 years. I am also a proud veteran. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of American Indian and Alaska Native veterans who continue to proudly serve this country at higher rates than any other demographic in the United States. As noted in my written testimony, the contributions of Native American veterans span from the Revolutionary War to today. Whether serving as code talkers during World War II or helping raise the American flag at Iwo Jima, Native American veterans have demonstrated courage, commitment, sacrifice, and undeniable service to this country, many before we were even citizens of this country. Many of these veterans commit to continued service upon returning to their communities, whether in tribal governance, community development, or other forms of public service. Native American veterans carry forward a long tradition of warrior societies rooted in responsibility, protection, and leadership. This is why it is important that NCAI is here today to advocate for the needs of our veterans, including healthcare, housing, food, and other support mechanisms that ensure their continued success and contributions to our communities and this country. First, on healthcare. Since I last testified before your committees, I am proud to report that the Congress has continually provided advance appropriations for the Indian Health Service. Many of our veterans live far away from VA healthcare facilities, making IHS the only way for many of our veterans to access healthcare. I thank you for your support in this effort and ask that you continue to ensure Native American veterans relying on IHS receive the same advanced appropriations as the VA does. Second, on housing. Many of our veterans have difficulty finding safe and affordable housing on or near tribal communities. NCI supports the Native American Direct Loan Program, which provides necessary financing for homes located on tribal trust lands at a 2.5% interest rate. Given the high cost of housing across the United States and the unique financing challenges associated with trust land, below market interest rates are critical to putting our deserving veterans in healthy homes. To ensure that the program is successful, we urge Congress to provide a directive to the VA to put an end to its current hiring freeze, and more specifically, to hire necessary VA staff that can educate Native American veterans on the program and provide much needed technical assistance to improve its utilization. Likewise, NCI strongly supports the continuation and expansion of the tribal HUD-VASH program. As part of this process, we encourage your committees to remove any unnecessary restrictions for Native American veterans who reside in current assisted stock units. In some tribal communities, these units are the only vacant units available to Native veterans. They should not be penalized because of limited housing options. Third, on food. NCI has been paying close attention to the changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We were disappointed to see that recent changes to SNAP remove the work requirement exemption for veterans, Native and non-Native alike. The elimination of this exemption creates unnecessary burdens in accessing critical nutrition for the bravest among us, rather than serving as an incentive for employment. A significant portion of our veterans reside in remote tribal areas where local unemployment rates are often 3 times or more the national average. In these regions, failure to secure a job that satisfies specific hourly requirements is more frequently due to geographic limitations than lack of effort. Fourth, on additional resources. The VA Advisory Committee on Tribal and Indian Affairs has served as a critical mechanism to ensure that tribal voices remain at the table as the VA develops policies, programs, and services that directly impact more than 145,000 Native American veterans that the VA serves today. NCI strongly believes that any disruption to the Advisory Committee's operations undermines the VA's ability to effectively serve Native American veterans. We urge your committees to ensure that the Advisory Committee has the legal framework and financial resources required to meet its obligations. To this point, we appreciate the introduction of the National Veterans Strategy Act, which would establish metrics to determine the well-being of our veterans regarding their physical health, mental health, spiritual health, economic security and opportunity, education, family and social engagement, and civic engagement. This important bill rightfully recognizes tribal governments and tribal organizations as key stakeholders to determine these metrics. Indian country knows firsthand the shortfalls that our veterans face, and we are eager to work with Congress to close those gaps. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. I will now recognize Captain Rita Graham for your opening remarks in 5 minutes.
Good morning, distinguished members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Rita Graham. I served as an Army Field Artillery officer, and I now serve as the Policy Director for the Service Women's Action Network, or SWAN. On behalf of women veterans everywhere, and on behalf of SWAN, I respectfully highlight 3 priorities today. Number 1, closing the gender-based research gaps under the PACT Act. Number 2, restoring comprehensive reproductive health care access for veterans. And 3, protecting evidence-based policies on women's service in ground combat units. These priorities reflect what we are seeing from women veterans across the country. Veterans who, like me, volunteered to serve fully knowing the risks of combat. But what we did not expect was that after our service, our access to health care and benefits that we earned could still depend on whether or not the VA systems recognize our service and sacrifice. That leads me to priority number 1, ensuring the PACT Act implementation fully addresses reproductive and fertility impacts. The PACT Act has been hugely successful in establishing long-term harms from toxic exposure. However, implementation gaps remain for women veterans specifically. Women veterans report substantially higher infertility rates than civilian women, yet researchers consistently identify significant gaps in data on reproductive health outcomes among women exposed to military environmental hazards. Substances linked to reproductive toxicity, miscarriage risk, and infertility are routinely encountered in everyday military environments, from motor pools, maintenance facility, and firing ranges. Yet, infertility and many reproductive health conditions are not currently included among toxic exposure presumptive conditions. And proving service connection can be particularly difficult due to complex Nexus and service connection requirements. While VA data shows success in women's veterans enrollment proportional to their population in toxic exposure screenings, however, the gap that we see today is that publicly available data related to claims approvals and denials and condition level outcomes are not consistently disaggregated by gender, making it difficult to fully assess whether benefits are being delivered appropriately. This issue is not whether or not women are being exposed to these chemicals. That's already been well documented. The issue today is that research systems to track these toxic exposures were built when the force was primarily male. Therefore, reproductive outcomes were not systematically tracked appropriately. Our challenge today is whether or not these outcomes are being fully and effectively measured. And let me be clear, this is not primarily a benefits issue. It is a measurement and accountability issue. Swan urges Congress to require gender
She makes a great point. At first, I thought she was implying that VA was denying service connection on the basis of gender, which I would probably disagree with. But that wasn't what she was saying. So I'm totally on board with, I agree.
Aggregated reporting,
Not that my opinion
prioritizing
matters.
longitudinal reproductive
But for instance, all the PACT Act, burn pit stuff that I experienced, the VA has done tons of research for males. But what does that mean if you have things that I don't understand, like menstrual cycles and the inability to give birth, things like that, which are just way over my head. So,
health research and ensuring veterans with service-connected infertility have clear treatment pathways. Recognizing reproductive harm from toxic exposure does not expand the PACT Act's mission, but instead fulfills it. Priority 2, restoring comprehensive reproductive healthcare access. In December of 2025, the VA reversed its policy permitting reproductive health services in cases of rape and incest. This policy reversal affects countless numbers of survivors of military sexual trauma within the female veteran population. VA data proves that roughly 1 in 3 women will experience military sexual trauma throughout their life. And reporting under the Deborah Sampson Act has documented more than 1,500 incidences of sexual harassment on VA campuses every single year. These data highlight a serious ongoing risk, where a veteran who survives sexual violence may seek care inside a VA system, yet lack the full range of pregnancy-related medical counseling available in their counterpart civilian healthcare systems. At SWAN, we believe that no veteran should lose their bodily autonomy because of their service to our country. SWAN urges Congress to ensure survivors of sexual violence have access to the same medically appropriate care available in their civilian healthcare counterparts. Our final priority, number 3, protecting evidence-based policies that affect women's military service. Last month, the Department of Defense announced a new or re-review of women in ground combat positions. This review comes despite more than a decade of research and operational experience that prove that integration challenges are solved through leadership, standards, and infrastructure, not inclusion. Today, there are approximately 5,000 women who serve in ground combat roles, and thousands more have already transitioned to veteran status like myself. While not directly under the scope of this committee, the policies that affect who can serve today will shape the population that the VA and this committee will serve tomorrow. SWAN encourages continued oversight to ensure personnel decisions remain evidence-based to sustain a strong military. Before closing, SWAN would like to appreciate the VA's reversal of the interim final rule on medication and disability ratings and hope this will lead to more transparency and congressional oversight for all future regulatory changes. In closing, when I became one of the first women integrated into a ground combat unit, I did not consider it a historic milestone. I was doing my job, as did so many other women veterans around the country. And now today, we women veterans ask for something very simple. We ask that the veteran healthcare system and benefits fully reflect the realities of our service. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions.
when I was in, I've had many deployments, okay, 4 by Marine Corps standards, but 7 if you count the 2 months here, 2.5 months here. Anyways, when I was in the worst deployment I was on, when it came to quality of life, meaning no showers, no bathing, limited water, limited baby wipes, just genuine tip of the spear Marine Corps stuff was in Syria in 2017. And we had, and I'm not kidding, the first female corpsman. The Marine Corps doesn't have medics. They have Navy people that do that stuff. But we had the first female corpsman in Syria with us. She was part of the truck that I was a part of. I was a PSYOP Marine at that time. And look, we didn't shower for 3 months at a time. People probably took 5 to 10 showers that entire 9-month deployment in Syria, in the mountains, moving day by every 2-3 days, closer and closer to Raqqa. And she was there with us, dude. And that really opened my eyes to females in environments like that. All right. And she was great. She was awesome. But yeah, because I came from the infantry, and that was the first time I had worked with a female, which was pretty weird. So just to give you some insight into what that looks like, I was a non-believer in females, just to be open with you, most of my career until that 2017 deployment in Syria. So
Thank you. I will now recognize Ms. Barbara Burt for her opening
I
remarks.
don't know if that's a good thing to share or not, but now you know. Lots of opening statements. I want to get to
Chairwoman
some questions
Mace,
here.
Chairman Boss, Chairman Moran, Ranking Member Takano, Ranking Member Blumenthal, and distinguished members of the committees. My name is Barbara Burt. I was born in Kansas and now live in Hanson, Massachusetts on a small farm. I appear today on behalf of Gold Star Wives of America Incorporated, representing widows and widowers across the nation who have lost their spouses as a result of military service. Gold Star Wives of America was founded in 1945 to advocate for policies and financial support for military survivors and their children. 80 years later, that mission remains as urgent as ever. I am the widow of Robert Burt Jr., who served in the United States Army, the Army Reserves, and as a full-time recruiter in the Kansas Army National Guard. As the effects of Agent Orange emerged, Bob's health declined. In 2019, he was diagnosed with multiple system atrophy, a devastating neurodegenerative disease. Within 2 years, it took everything from him, including his life. After Bob's death, I became trapped in grief. Gold Star Wives of America Incorporated became my restoration. Dependency and indemnity.
I don't get that either, but they do. They all do.
Compensation, DIC, was created to prevent economic collapse after the loss of a service member. The word indemnity recognizes the loss caused by a military service is permanent. Yet today, that promise is not being fulfilled. As a new member of Gold Star Wives of America Incorporated, I was struck by who these military spouses are. Many gave up careers, education, and financial security to care for their veteran. They met medical, emotional, and financial needs without guarantee of a future. When their spouse returned broken in body, in spirit, or in a flag-draped casket, they stepped forward into a life of caregiving, loss, economic instability, without hesitation. They served a nation that has not always served them. For more than 30 years, Gold Star Wives of America Incorporated has advocated for updating the inadequate level of DIC. We are often told it costs too much. Meanwhile, I watch grieving spouses struggle with inadequate heat, food insecurity, housing instability, and unmet medical needs, and still show up. They show up for each other, for their communities, and for this country. These brave, selfless women and men validated my grief and showed me that purpose can grow from loss, what the Bible calls beauty for ashes. Today, most surviving spouses live on approximately $1,700 per month from DIC. Some receive Social Security, many do not. Every year that DIC remains inadequate, military spouses pay the consequences, not in theory, but in daily hardship. That hardship means choosing between heat and medication, groceries and gasoline. It means delaying care, skipping meals, and living with the constant fear that one unexpected expense will undo what little stability remains. For many, it means losing a family home and moving into shared or unstable housing. Members of the committee, you can change this. HR 6047 provides a modest but meaningful increase, and we thank Chairman Bost and the House Committee for advancing this bill. As noted at markup, this is a down payment, progress, not completion. That completion is S611 and HR 2055, the Caring for Survivors Act. Today, DIC replaces only 43% of 100% disabled veterans' compensation. This bill raises that to 55%, aligning military survivors with other federal survivors. This is not just a matter of fairness, it is a matter of survival. HR 1685, the Justice for ALS Veterans Act, reflects medical reality. ALS carries a 2 to 5 year life expectancy. Policies requiring 8 years of total disability create structural exclusion. We also support S410 and HR 1004, the Love Lives On Act, which affirms that our nation's responsibility to military families does not end at loss. Chairman Moran, thank you for your leadership. Finally, we support HR 2264, the Service-Connected Suicide Compensation Act. Like the PACT Act, it shifts the burden of proof away from grieving spouses and towards fairness and compassion. Members of this committee, we urge your favorable consideration of these bills and are confident that bipartisan leadership can move them to the President's desk. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Gold Star Wives of America Incorporated.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize Mr. Richard Brookshire for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Chairman Moran, Chairmanwoman Mace, Ranking Member Blumenthal and Takano, and distinguished members of the committees. Black Veterans Project represents the first comprehensive reparative.
Raider, if the funny hat makes you upset, I would assume a baseball cap in Congress would get on your skin too.
Justice effort, mobilizing Black veterans and military families systematically denied access to the GI Bill during the height of Jim Crow, as well as those who endured systemic racial inequities across the Department of Veteran Affairs benefits program since the end of legal segregation. BVP leverages data-driven research, narrative storytelling, and impact litigation to redress the federal government's sustained legacy of racial bias that has siphoned an estimated $100 billion in wealth-generating opportunities from Black veterans and military families since World War II. While the families of white veterans now hold 32 times more wealth than those of Black veterans, a gap of $164,000 per household, Black veterans remain twice as likely to live in poverty and represent fully 1/3 of the homeless veteran population. Since 2020, Black Veterans Project has worked with Yale Law School and the National Veterans Council for Legal Redress to FOIA internal VA data, exposing the systemic denial of billions in disability pay to Black veterans in the post 9/11 era. Monk versus United States, a legal case leveraging these findings, is poised to become the first race-based class action reckoning with the legacy of racial discrimination in VA's benefits programs.
That case he's talking about, I'm kind of talking way over my head here, but it moved forward. Everyone thought it was going to get shot down, but it did not. It moved forward. And if you don't think there's systemic things happening, especially when it comes to education during what he referenced during the Jim Crow era, you're living in La La Land. So,
while more recent disparities at VA has taken years of strategic advocacy to bring to light, Efforts to further investigate and address systemic inequities were haphazardly upended last year when the Office of Equity Assurance was liquidated under the auspices of government efficiency.
Fun fact, someone I went to church with was the senior executive over that office. And so I got the inside scoop on all of that. Obviously, I'm not going to share, but it would be not right.
For decades, VA flat out ignored repeated requests by advocates to access its racial data. A 2021 lawsuit by Black Veterans Project compelled the release of just 2 decades worth of disability grant rate data by race, substantiating what Black veterans and advocates had long suspected: sustained and systemic disparities in the administration of a veterans benefits program. Despite a government record spanning the widespread obstruction of Civil War pensions through the multi-generational obstruction of veterans' housing, education, and healthcare benefits from World War II through the Gulf Wars, accountability remains elusive. In January of 2024, VA summarily eliminated its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives focused on improving outreach to minority, women, and veterans adversely affected by persistent inequality. Seemingly overnight, it terminated more than 60 employees and reallocated more than $14 million in earmarked fundings to wage a shameless war on woke. Now, innocuous rule changes and unregulated artificial intelligence are wreaking havoc in ways that will undermine access, with too few guardrails in place to ebb their impact. The deployment of anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion narratives levied through dubious executive orders has sown confusion and fear, threatening those working to mitigate adverse discriminatory outcomes at VA and beyond. The very systems built to catalyze integration and guarantee accessibility for all veterans have been eroded by partisan political gain. And the dignity of our nation's veterans has become collateral damage for an anti-woke agenda that serves to distract from the rapid privatization of our nation's largest public healthcare system. Worse still, powerful forces are actively colluding to redefine who is entitled to the myriad of benefits earned through military service and whose contributions in uniforms are ultimately remembered, honored, and uplifted. As we mark our nation's 250th anniversary, historical erasure is adding insult to injury. The veneration and advancement of anti-democratic, discriminatory narratives and policies present a nexus of crisis across our federal government that must be confronted, and a decay of values that must be uprooted and repaired. Americans envision a multiracial democracy in which all veterans are respected and protected. That is not the moment in which we now find ourselves. We are at a pivotal crossroads where apathy, animus, and willful ignorance are converging. This must be met with moral clarity and conviction. The shared values of integration, equal opportunity, equity, and inclusion are structural necessities that equip the best of us to do the most for all of us. That is the America for which countless souls have perished, the America for which I donned a uniform, and that is the America your committees must embody to adequately care for those who have borne the battle, no matter their identity. Black Veterans Project looks forward to working with each of you to repair past and present harms and to rebuild the public trust required for VA veterans in our nation to thrive into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
If you ever want to do a quick research on just a little bit of what he's discussed, just look up Montford Point Marines. That would be a quick overview.
Berkshire. I will now recognize myself for 3 minutes of questions. My first question goes to you, General Kelly. The barriers within the transition process preventing veterans from accessing and understanding their benefits, what are those barriers?
I think first, thanks for the question, Chairwoman, and thanks for having us here again today. I think first and foremost, when you get into those rooms, when I've gone through the transition assistance program, as many of the veterans, I'm sure Representative Luttrell went through as well. You get in there and there's focus on a very short period of time, and most people are focused on only their disability claims, the information that comes out and what's going to happen. There are so many other benefits and so many other things that have to happen that the information isn't necessarily passed in the right way. In addition, to make the connections that have to happen afterwards to help people make their transition to the VA and access to all those other benefits and have continued continuity in that really requires a focus, for which many of the VSOs, many of the MSOs who you see here are prepared and set to do that. Not just on the disability side. In fact, we don't even do disability claims at MOA, but to make sure that those veterans have access to all of the benefits that they have and have information from a trusted source so that they don't go looking for somebody who is out there just doing it for profit.
And so what are some of those key benefits you think that they're missing hearing about?
Education, housing, other healthcare that's not related to your disability claims. There's a variety of those in there that they've earned through their service that are just being lost, or sometimes they're being sent to folks who are there to prey on them in regard to helping them get a disability out payment, for which then they'll reap the benefits, which is unfortunate for
I think
our
we call
veterans.
those sharks, right?
But we
That's-
absolutely do. That's correct.
And then how do we, I guess, for that continuity, making sure they know all their benefits, how do we remove some of those barriers? What are some of your ideas?
I think, we've listed some of them in our written testimony, but, certainly the work that's being done for the Guard VA Act to help make sure we police some of those sharks, as you call them, out of there is important. Make sure we get the right groups of people involved in that transition so that the connections and the discussions can be made and we can know who the trusted sources are, so the veterans, even if they don't have the information the first time, have the right places to follow up and make sure that they get access to all their benefits.
I'll answer that one. Okay. When I went through transition assistance program, the Marine Corps calls it TRS, Transition Readiness Seminar, or at least they did when I got out. A VSO did our VA benefit brief. All right. And I'm not kidding, it was an hour long. About 10 minutes of the brief was VA disability, VA education, like GI Bill, stuff like that, and VA healthcare. 10 minutes. You can't explain disability, education, and healthcare in 10 minutes to someone who's getting out in less than 6 months. You can't do it. The rest of the 50 minutes, and I'm not joking about this, was spent on burial benefits. All right. Who's at fault? And let me just tell you, it was a DAV VSO representative, a service, an accredited service officer out of the TRS program in Quantico in 2019. He was an old dude. He was in 19 when he was in the Marine Corps. And that's the issue. It's that service officers, and I'm just going to be blunt here, not sugarcoat it. They're stupid. And I hate to even say that word, but most of them are stupid. And now you charge them with giving a brief to people who are getting out. And what you're going to get is, hey, I don't know anything about my job, about disability, about healthcare, and about education, but I do know burial benefits because I'm old as dirt, and that's what I'm focused on. And the issue is VSOs will stake that flag in the ground and be like, we are the best people to deliver transition assistance, when in reality they absolutely suck. But hey, they get government grant money, so there you go. That's the issue. In case anyone's curious, that's the issue.
Thank you. And I have 45 seconds left, Captain Graham. My last question is for you. How can the VA be more efficient with how it delivers benefits to veterans, their families, women, et cetera, everything you talked about?
Thank you for the question. I think, first of all, just having proper reporting data coming from the VA up. The question obviously is to how to receive the benefits, but we need to know, the VA needs to know what issues there are. A lot of the data that we pull is anecdotal from individuals. The VA just needs a better understanding of what these issues are for servicewomen, and that comes from better research disaggregated by gender.
Okay, thank you. I would now like to recognize the ranking member. Okay, Senator Duckworth, you're now recognized.
We accept no Duckworth slander on this channel. She is the veteran champion. She spoke out. She was the only person who spoke out against Lieutenant Colonel retired Gade, if you remember that. So I don't care how bad, I don't care what she does in the future. We will never accept Duckworth slander.
Thank you. And I want to thank the ranking member, Congressman Takano, for yielding to me. I'm running a little behind schedule. From the moment my buddies carried me to safety, I have dedicated my life to supporting our nation's veterans and serving them in order to try in a minuscule way honor their bravery and their sacrifice. That is mission is why I'm here today as a member of Congress. And that's why I continue to join you in fighting tirelessly against Donald Trump's attack on the VA, because I see clear as day that the end goal here is to privatize and eventually dismantle the VA. And this effort has started even before this administration. It's been ongoing, and we've been fighting this for a very long time. At this point, President Trump has fired more veterans than any other president in American history. He's taken an axe to the VA workforce. He's killed collective bargaining rights to instill a culture of fear and consistently withheld oversight authorities from Congress. His administration plans to gut the Veterans Health Administration's management structure and outsource $1 trillion away from VA clinicians and to civilian provider network that does not have the specialized infrastructure to provide service-informed care. Over 1 year into his second term, there is still no clear strategy on how Donald Trump's VA plans to deliver more resources to veterans, not less. He claims that he cares about veterans, and I state, the president says, I quote, "Under my leadership, our nation will always uphold the legacy of our veterans, and as president, I will always have their backs," end quote. Frankly, I'm tired of his broken promises, and the veteran community should be too. His administration has turned its back on veterans every single time an opportunity has presented itself. Secretary Collins' most recent ambush interim final rule should be a sobering call to action. Do not be fooled. Until Secretary Collins rescinds that rule, it remains in effect. It remains in effect. If you think that this is the end of this administration's effort to attack disability compensation, then you are wrong. If that was the case, Secretary Collins would have consulted all of us, or at the minimum, rescind the rule and assert a clear consultation plan with all stakeholders being consulted, beginning with the members of Congress and then, of course, with the VSOs. You are the voice of our nation's veterans, each and every one of you. You should have been consulted. This is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is not even a Trump issue. This is an issue of privatizing the VA, which has been an effort that has been underway for decades, and we must stand up to it. This is a veterans issue. And my promise, my commitment is to fight to uphold our nation's promise to veterans, even when that makes us unpopular and calls for confrontation. More than ever, Republicans, Democrats, and VSOs alike need to come together to protect our nation's veterans. So let's get to work to codify protections that ensure that Donald Trump or any other future president cannot come after veterans' disability compensation ever again. Before I close, I want to get the panel's view on a particularly offensive angle of this ambush rulemaking that the public may not fully appreciate. And again, I want to establish a precedent that no future president, no future administration, regardless of their party affiliation, can do this ever again. So this question is open-ended to the members of the panel that's here. Can you explain why it was so inappropriate to use an interim final rulemaking process for such a controversial policy, and address the message that's being sent by the administration to the VSOs and the entire veterans community in seeking to jam this through before a single comment was filed? Basically, I'd like each of you to explain to me why it's important that you should be consulted when such a rule is being made. General?
Senator Duckworth, first, thanks for your support of veterans and what you do. It's amazing.
I'm going to link a video from Andy Gross who explains this beautifully. He's an accredited lawyer, and he gets to the point of the matter. People really focused on they're going to lower VA ratings. That's not the case here. It was something much bigger. But listen to this, and I'll find that video.
All of us think we have the ears of our veterans and have some information to provide. And so transparency in terms of consulting us, giving us information, we think would have provided the Secretary and the VA with some information that may have adjusted the outcomes, which means anxiety and all the things that went associated with this recent thing would have been avoided. And we think that can happen in the future. This group of people has information to provide and should be consulted.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Anybody else?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we're from Indian country. We're it's very important that we have those consultation processes and upholding the trust and treaty responsibility that the United States has to our tribal people. And in this case, especially our veterans. When we look at, there's 145,000 Native veterans in this country. A law was passed creating a VA Tribal Advisory Committee, And this kind of information and that kind of consultation should have gone through that committee that's upheld by law.
I was very proud when I was at VA under General Shinseki to set up the situation where we dealt with our First Nation veterans on a nation-to-nation basis. That is critically important, especially for a population that has the highest
I think he's still in the Guard. Actually, don't quote me on that.
per capita service in our nation's military than any other population. So thank you. I think you have a unique voice and you should have a seat at the table because your veterans in particular have unique needs that should have been addressed that you were not consulted, and that is completely inappropriate.
I don't know though. I could be wrong, but I'm
On behalf of
pretty
Service
sure
Women's Action Network,
the
we also
Maryland Guard
fully believe that
as a JAG.
the filing of the interim file or the interim rule is so important because it's happened to us already, where our reproductive health access were taken away under interim final rule. So just shows a pattern of these unofficial systems
true.
without any of the veterans, the VSOs being consulted.
So the same thing the VA did with 4.10, very similar. They did to specific cancers. And the sad part is no one really cared about it because it affected such a small number of veterans, which isn't the right answer. So, but what she said is absolutely true.
On ways to take away further and further minority health care and minority veteran benefits.
Thank you. You've been very indulgent, Madam.
I've been very generous. That's fine. I want to hear from our veterans, and thank you, Senator Duckworth. Ranking Member Takano, you're now recognized for 3 minutes.
All right, Takano, let's see what
Well,
you got.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Gray.
Takano is either 100% correct or 0% correct. There's no middle ground. You never know what you're going to get with him.
My colleagues and I in both the House and the Senate have introduced legislation to overturn VA's final rule restricting abortion access. How important is it to your members to overturn this rule and allow veterans access to abortion?
Thank you for the question. We believe it's incredibly important. If nothing else, there is no other healthcare in the VA system that men can have that women cannot, other than this abortion ruling. When these actions get taken place, women veterans are just told time and time again that our service does not count as much, it does not mean as much, and that we don't deserve the same benefits.
Okay, so don't get mad at me, okay? This is one where he's wrong, all right? If the VA is going to provide abortion services, if that's the case, then Congress, Takano, and others like him need to pass the law. That's it. It's as simple as that. And so I whether you agree with it or not, if the VA is going to do that, then Congress has to pass a law. That's we kind of see this transference from Congress of saying like VA is not doing all these things. Well, hot diggity dog, then pass a law because that's why they're not doing it. So that's the root issue here that people like to ignore.
Can you tell me, how do women veterans feel that they've put on the uniform of our country, put their lives on the line to defend the rights of all Americans, but yet have this right over their own health care taken away?
It's insulting, both as a veteran and on behalf of SWAN. It's insulting that the fact that our healthcare could even be limited in this system that we've earned, that we've deserved. And so it's insulting, and it's also terrifying. Women veterans especially need trauma-informed care that the VA is really excellent at providing and has only improved over the years. When we can't receive trauma-informed care for reproductive health access, women will die. Their health outcomes will be adversely impacted. So it's hugely detrimental.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, how is the implementation of the Dole Act regarding awarding grants to states and Indian tribes to improve veteran outreach? How's that been going this year?
Indian country is very thankful for the Dole Act and the impact that it has. And in particular, this law was signed in January 2025. Two landmark provisions that represent a significant step forward for Indian country is expanding home ownership opportunities for Native American veterans.
Excuse me, Mr. Wright, is it going well? Is it not going well?
It is. There's other opportunities that we would like to see continued to help with that, with the Native American Direct Loan Program, HUD-VASH, are two other programs that are very helpful for Indian country.
Well, thank you. Mr. Brookshire, last May, Black Veterans of America participated in our roundtable assessing disparities for minority veterans. And where we highlighted the importance of the VA's now shuttered Office of Equity Assurance. What has been the impact that this office closure has had on your community?
Thank you for the question. It's the inability to track data and to move on findings that the Office of Equity Insurance were beginning to findings that were beginning to materialize under the office that were pinpointing where disparities were most concentrated and trying to get down to the root cause issues. That obviously that work has been abandoned.
Well, we've seen an explosion of the use of artificial intelligence at VA in both clinical and non-clinical spaces. What concerns do you have about these use cases, and what recommendations do you have for better protecting veteran data as AI continues to expand at VA?
The use of AI at this point is an evolving technology with a lot of concern about exacerbating racial bias in the system if implemented without proper oversight and regulation. And I believe that many veterans organizations, including Black Veterans Project, want a AI Veterans Bill of Rights, and so that we understand how our data is being leveraged at any given moment.
Thank you for that. Thank you, madam.
All right, I will now recognize Ranking Member Blumenthal for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go a little bit off script because, as you know, you're here on a very important day. It's the day of the State of the Union address. And typically, a president delivering the State of the Union address talks about veterans. I certainly hope tonight President Trump will talk about veterans. And I have sort of a wish list.
Oh, I hope
I don't know
so
whether
too.
you
I
do.
can get a video out of it.
I'd like to see the President of the United States commit to immediate passage of the Richard Starr Act. I'd like to see the President of the United States commit to replace all of the 30,000 workforce who have been fired or encouraged to leave positions that are open now and are essential to veterans' health care and other benefits. I'd like to see him commit to restoring contracts. We don't know how many exactly, and we don't know how.
Here's my hot take. The fork in the road option was one of the best things that could have happened for those who wanted to get out of the federal workforce. That's definitely a hot take. Not everyone would agree with that, but.
Which ones they are, but we know that hundreds have been canceled. The VA has not been forthcoming. I'd like to see the president commit to the full funding of all the programs that benefit veterans' education and training that are so essential to their making productive lives when they leave active duty. And I would like to see him commit to rescinding the interim final rule that we've been discussing here today, rescinding it. The Secretary of the VA can do it right away, and I'd like to see the president commit to it, as well as the reversal of the ban, which Ms. Burke, you were talking about, that bars providing reproductive health care to veterans.
Everyone and their mama knows that's not happening.
These are just some of the steps that I'd like to see him take. And I would like to invite anyone who wants to add to that wish list to do so now.
Sir, if I might. And the interim rule, according to our research, has been in existence since 1958. Evaluating disability ratings in light of medications veterans are taking.
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that this is the first person who has said what I have said. Wow.
This is really not a brand new concept.
Holy baloney. Gosh, dude, I cannot tell you how many videos. I mean, I think I did 6 videos saying that same exact thing because everyone got it wrong. It wasn't the taking away ratings wasn't the big thing. It was how he essentially said that the VA has been rating positive effects of medication since 1958. And the idea that VA ratings are being taken away was the bologna sandwich, right? The big thing there was how the VA went about combating the courts with 4.10.
But the way it was introduced created confusion and concern across the entire veterans community. BVA was engaged in professional dialogue with Secretary Collins and senior officials to ensure veterans were protected.
Right.
Our concern is not political. It is about clarity, transparency, and ensuring no veteran is harmed now or in the future. Never again means never again. Well, veterans should not be blindsided by regulatory action without clear communication and opportunity for input, which we never had. And we did not obviously have a clear communication from the VA. Our goal really is simple, is to protect veterans today and prevent problems for future generations.
Well, thank you, sir. I hope the president's listening or someone in the White House is listening to you, because that interim rule needs to be rescinded, or we need to do legislation that will, as you put it very well, clarify what the rules are and make sure that veterans understand they don't have to sacrifice their medical benefits in order to comply with this rule, which is the threat that was raised, the confusion that was created, and the unfortunate impact on the veterans community without any real communication with them. Thank you. My time has expired. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I will now recognize Mr. Luttrell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
All right. Are we talking about shrooms
Mr.
again?
Berkshire, ideally, in my opinion, as a veteran, you're probably going to appreciate what I'm about to say. The transition from active duty to veteran it really doesn't exist as far as information moving from one space to the other. In my opinion, we should be able to take all the information, our service records, our medical records, everything that we've touched, tasted, felt, and smelled inside active duty, and it should automatically move into the veteran system. I'm leaving the Navy. PSD says, all right, hey, look, calls the VA up. Morgan's inbound. We're going to drag the system. We're going to drag all the information. It lands inside the VA. The VA says, I've got him. He's good to go. And everything is actioned. When I'm dealing with VSOs that touch the homeless population, the homeless population don't have all their information. They either lost or wherever that goes. How do we get out in front of the issue that affects our homeless population while they're still in the DOD? Is there a trajectory that we're missing? Is there information breakdown that we could catch? And when you are engaging with the homeless population, is there something that kind of elevates to the tops? Like, hey, this is what we're seeing in the vast majority of our homeless veterans that we could probably catch while they're still active duty, or the VA can pay more attention to, until, which I've been working on this for 3 years now, until the system itself moves effectively and efficiently for us.
I appreciate the question. I would like to consult with the organizations that focus specifically on that, specifically Black veterans organizations that focus on that, and get back to you.
Because I deal with Black veterans empowerment with Sean Deadweiler. I don't know if you're familiar with that gentleman. This is where he operates. And I've asked the same question to him. But I'm trying to gather as much information as possible here so we can legislate that appropriately. Because to your point, no veteran should be forgotten. No veteran should be dismissed. All right. And the system itself, since its creation, has created that problem set. I like to say we need to take the veteran out of the equation, make the system correct, and the veterans are better taken care of. And the reason that I ask you that specific question about our homeless population, and it's the answers that I get, even up to, hey, some of the our homeless population is like, hey, I'm happy where I'm at. And how are we supposed to address that?
Again, I don't know how to specifically answer that question, but the first thing that comes to mind is there's a disproportionate amount of homeless veterans who are facing other than honorable or dishonorable discharges. And so you have to kind of address some of the root causation of that within DOD that puts them at a disadvantage to begin with when they get out. And Black folks are overrepresented in even today.
So he's not the lone survivor person, okay? It's his brother. Now, Latrell is also a SEAL. I guess that family just puts out good genes. But what they are, I will tell you this, at least from my uneducated opinion, combating veteran homelessness is an uphill battle, and I just don't think the DOD treats service members, especially with OTHs and other discharges that aren't honorable, really bad. And then the VA just has to deal with this like poop sandwich that they get handed. And I don't think there is a cure for it, to be honest with you. I don't think the problem can be fixed because it's not housing or money that's an issue. That's largely some mental health probably in there. I just think that it's a problem that the VA has been dealt that I don't think anyone can fix. Nonprofit or VA, doesn't matter.
The present day, they're twice as likely, almost 3 times as likely, depending on branch of service, to get out with an other than honorable discharge, which affects their accessibility to benefits. So I think there's a need to address the kind of more systemic racial justice issues relative to the UCMJ.
All right, thank you. I would like to thank Chairman Moran, Ranking Member Blumenthal. I would like to thank you for being here today. I will now recognize Ranking Member Takano for closing remarks.
Thank you. Very brief, and I want to really thank.
Yeah, so it's not though, right? That's like surface level. It's mental health, drug addictions, other addictions. If it was a money issue, we would solve. It would have been solved already. I don't know if you've ever met someone that has like psychosis, okay? But they are like, when we say crazy, that's like medically crazy. I don't think there is. I think it's a problem that can't be fixed. That's coming from a guy in a basement. I'm not right. I'm just, this is my channel, so I'm giving you my thoughts.
The sincere interest of my colleague from Texas, Congressman Latrell, and his questions. Congressman, your concern about the transition of military service members going smoothly, making sure that all the data information gets transferred from DOD into the VA. I want to suggest that you take a look at legislation that I've offered called eVest, which would basically be an opt-out program so that veterans don't have to go and get into VA. They're assumed and presumed to automatically be enrolled in VA, and they have to opt out of it.
That's exact. I don't even know why that doesn't exist. Why is it the veteran's burden when they leave the VA to get acquainted, or when they leave DOD to get acquainted with the VA, when a federal department can just say, hey, VA, here's this veteran. That's it. Allow the veteran to make appointments, put the appointment making burden on the veteran, but not applying it. How crazy is it that veterans have to apply to the VA, right? Just have the handshake from DOD to VA. Why is that so hard?
That was what eVest does. Oddly enough, it does cost some money to do this. But I think for that year, 2 years, 3 years, that they leave the military, that's a very critical time for them to be in touch with VA and to know and learn about all the programs. They shouldn't have to opt in.
It's funny when he said it costs money because it was the hearing. Luttrell and Takano sit right next to each other as ranking members. It was the House hearing when Luttrell opened the hearing by saying, hey, we don't have any money. We must find an offset. And so that's kind of why that's a little like inside joke he just did to Luttrell, which is, if you knew the context, it was kind of like a jab in the kidney, you know?
They should automatically be put into VA as number one. Secondly, we know from the Vietnam War era, minority veterans, African-American veterans, Latino veterans faced disproportionate disciplinary actions. And upon review, many of them might retrospectively look very unjust, and I would say unjust. And we have so many, and it's not just that particular war, it was many other conflicts where other than honorable discharges were issued, and it's a big issue for the veteran community. And it impacts their ability to get those transition services, and many are disproportionately on the streets because of that reason. And so I think if we want to address veteran homelessness, other than honorable discharges are something that we need to look at rectifying. And it goes beyond minority veterans. It goes to the general veteran population in addressing homelessness. We need to look at what veterans are being denied, services that they need. And look who enters the military service. It's not the wealthiest. It's not the most privileged. It is people from low-income backgrounds who are looking for a way out, a way up. And for many service members, the military has been an excellent place for that to occur. But the transition services are so important. Madam Chair, thank you so much for hosting these hearings, and thank you to all the veteran service organizations for being here and testifying.
He does make a good point. You could actually argue the military preys on underprivileged high school graduates, which is a true statement.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody for being here today, for the veterans who served and traveled through snow, through a blizzard, for their testimony today. It's very clear we still have, no surprise, shocker, a lot of work to do for our veterans when they come home. I'm the daughter of a Vietnam veteran exposed to Agent Orange. I've seen the lifelong health complications that my father has had. Oh, you would like to give remarks as well? Okay, I'll recognize
Happy to
you.
follow you, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's fine. You can go. Go for it.
Thank you.
She wants the
Well,
last
let
word,
me
big
begin by
dog.
thanking you and our other House colleagues for making the long trip over here. But I think this hearing has been very, very useful. Thank you for your and Representative Takano's leadership, and of course, Senator Moran. And I want to thank all of you who have demonstrated your enormous patience and perseverance in staying with us in the audience, and of course, this panel, which has been excellent, like the last one. And as I said at the very start, never doubt that you are making a difference. You are the chief champions and advocates for our veterans, and they need your voice and face. I want to reiterate for the record that the Senate committee has yet to receive many of the most important responses that we have urged, I was going to say demanded, but that we have requested from the Secretary of the VA, Doug Collins. I'm going to ask that our letter of February 4th, almost 3 weeks ago, which asked for this information as promptly as possible. We have not yet received more than half of the responses that are due, if there's no objection, Madam Chair. And again, I think transparency is so important. Transparency, the flow of information, communication. Our veterans are attuned to listening. If you're taught nothing else in the military, it is pay attention. Our veterans pay attention. and they deserve and they need to be told the truth promptly and
Thank you.
accurately. So thank you all for being here today, because your oversight is so important. And thank you again, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the Charleston Ralph H. Johnson Veterans Affairs Medical Facility for those who are here from South Carolina. Some of the most preeminent and greatest technologies coming out of there for our veterans. A lot of my family gets served there, and we're very proud of their work. But coming from a veteran family, talk about those that are poor and destitute to get out of rural America and make something of themselves. My father went into the Army in 1963. He was from little old Hampton, South Carolina. His family didn't have a lot of money. And when he went to Vietnam, he was one of the best sharpshooters they had, even though they didn't really have that back then. And, he still has shrapnel in his body from those days, from serving 2 tours in Vietnam. And his best friend, Mr. Berkshire, was his radio operator. Black young man from North Carolina who died in that service. My father still can't tell that story without tearing up, because of the sacrifices men and women from all walks of life, all colors, have come forward to serve their nation valiantly. And I appreciate the very open, the very honest conversation we've had today. I would urge you all to continue to use your voices, to be loud, to be heard as we work together for the future, for serving all of our veterans across the country. I want to say thank you. I want to say welcome home. And I want to say God bless each and every one of you. Thank you. And this concludes today's joint VSO hearing. I think it's clear that the committees, in collaboration with the VA under leadership of Secretary Collins, have a lot more work to do in service to our veterans and their families. I'm, of course.
What do you think will come out of this long hearing? That's the question. Anyways, I have a full Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday is usually my church office day, but the hearing was happening, so I kind of pushed all that to the afternoon. So I got to go. Anyways, peace. Thank you for attending the stream. I appreciate it.